President Tomorito, we are streaming.
Thank you. We'll call to order our meeting for tonight, our Board of Education meeting, and we'll go ahead and get started here. So I just want to remind those who are speaking during tonight's meeting that we are closed caption. We're on YouTube live stream, so please speak clearly, slowly, so that it can capture that information. So will you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos. We would like to acknowledge the tribal lands that we currently reside on. So we gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose homelands we gather, as well as diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. Just want to also mention that yesterday we had our tribal consultation and it turned out very phenomenal, and it was a great pleasure to listen to leaders and their concerns about what was happening with their students in their communities. And right now we would like to have a moment of silence. We gratefully for those who served our country, and let's take a moment to acknowledge that. Okay. Dr. Albright, may we have a roll call?
Danella Storga.
Here.
Rebecca Betson.
Here.
Heather Benavides.
Here.
Orikia Bowman.
Here.
Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Joshua Martinez. Ronaldo Tomorito.
Here. Item number 2, agenda adoption. Our next, so we want to consider adoption of our March 4th, 2026 Board of Education meeting agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we adopt the March 4th, 2026 Board of Education meeting agenda. This is Member Jackson.
And I second it. This is Member Betson.
Board Member Jackson, motion to adopt today's meeting agenda, and Board Member Benson, second. Can we take a vote?
Danella Storga.
Yes.
Rebecca Betson.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Orikia Bowman.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes. We would like to go into item number 3, minutes approval. Consider approval of the minutes from the Board of Education meeting on February 18th, 2026. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move that we approve the minutes from the Board of Education meeting held on February 18th, 2026. This is Board Member Benavides.
I'll second. This is Member Jackson.
Board Member Benavides, motion to approve the February 18th minutes, and Board Member Jackson, second. Can I have a vote, please?
Danella Storga.
Yes.
Rebecca Betson.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Orikia Bowman.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Tomorito.
Yes. And we'll go ahead and move to item 4. Our student outcome recognition for interim goal 1.1. Our next item is recognition of students. Dr. Blakely, will you please lead the recognitions?
Madam President, members of the board, later this evening, we will monitor the progress of interim goals 1.1 and 1.2, which measure reading proficiency in first and second grade among student groups who were identified in the Yazzie and Martinez decision, as well as African-American students. Before we discuss the reports, I would like to take a moment to recognize schools that have shown the greatest gains in reading proficiency among our targeted student groups from the beginning to the middle of the school year. So tonight, instead of recognizing individual students, we are recognizing the principals and any staff who are here on behalf of their schools. We saw strong progress across the district, and these schools stand out for demonstrating some of the largest gains we've seen. Principals or any staff that are here from each school, when I call your school, please stand so we can recognize you on behalf of your staff and students. The schools that saw reading proficiency gains of 20 percentage points or more among first graders in our targeted student groups are S.Y. Jackson, up 25.9 points, Principal Jack Vermillion. Stand. Very, well, he did a half stand. Stay standing, please. Barcelona Elementary School, up 23.5 points, Principal Raylyn Dooley. Tres Volcanes, up 21.2 points, Principal Hannah Manofla. Bellhaven, up 20.5 points, Principal Sarah Carrillo. And Manzano Mesa, up 20.2 points, Principal Shannon Dixon. Let's give a round of applause for all of these principals and their school communities. Thank you. The schools that saw reading proficiency gains of 20 percentage points or more among second graders in our targeted student groups are Double Eagle, up 29.5 points, Principal Shayna Kagan. Hubert Humphrey, up 27.5 points, Principal Adam Dodge. Petroglyph Elementary School, up 21.1 points, Principal Christina Romo. And Chaparral Elementary School, up 20.5 points, Principal Michelle Tudor. Let's give a round of applause for these principals and their school communities. We want to be sure to recognize the teachers, our educational assistants, support staff, and the families who make this kind of progress possible every day. Thank you for your unwavering dedication to our students. And a big congratulations to, of course, our students. We know how hard they're working, and it's exciting to see their effort paying off in the classroom. So congratulations, everyone.
Thank you. I will now move on to item number 5, our public forum. Board Member Secretary Benson, will you please share the instructions for public forum?
I will do. Thank you,
Benavides.
President.
Oh, Benavides, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. Too many Bs.
No.
So we welcome our guests who are joining us for public forum this evening. Thank you for taking the time to participate. When you signed up to speak, you were asked to review the rules and expectations for public forum, which our presiding officer will enforce. Under the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, our meeting agendas must clearly specify the items that will be discussed and voted on. For that reason, public forum is not a dialogue between speakers and board members, but rather an opportunity for the board to hear directly from members of our community. Speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up, whether attending in person or virtually. If you are here with us tonight, please come to the microphone at the back of the room when your name is called. Those joining us online will remain in the virtual waiting room until it is their turn to speak. We have set aside 45 minutes for public forum this evening. If there are 22 or fewer speakers, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. If there are more than 22 speakers, each person will have 1 minute. Tonight, we have 19 speakers. When your time has expired, you will be asked to conclude your remarks so that we can move on to the next speaker. If you feel you were unable to fully share your message, you are welcome to email the board at boarded@aps.edu. In addition, for those of you attending in person this evening, a representative from our service center is available to assist you if necessary. And at this time, Mr. Gonzalez will introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Board Member Benavides. Our first speaker is in the room, Dr. Ellen Bernstein, followed by Sarah Hager. Dr. Bernstein, you'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Good evening, President Tom Morito, members of the board, and Superintendent Blakey. My name is Ellen Bernstein. Sorry, I'm not sure how to, I feel like I need to lower it, sorry. My name is Ellen Bernstein. I'm the president of the Albuquerque Teachers Federation. Thank you. Over the past few years, the educators that we represent in our union have reported their profession. Thank you. Over the past few years, the educators that we represent have reported that their profession has become even more stressful than normal. We know that working in public schools is a stressful occupation, but yet educators have been citing growing workloads, demands to meet unsustainable mandates, and ever-increasing disruptive student behavior, among other factors that are causing their jobs to be less and less rewarding. We created a survey. We asked the question, is your stress turning into distress? The questions were very carefully crafted based on the input that we were receiving by educators over several years. The survey results indicate a significant portion of the people who responded have consistent concerns. The number of struggling educators is significant enough to make addressing these issues urgent if we are to be able to if they are to be able to manage their careers and we're able to retain them as educators. The data is clear. Educator stress has turned into distress in key areas, and we need to act. While it's difficult to separate what's going on with the public ed department from the district, we want to ask you, all of you, to partner with us to make sure that we look at what's going on in our district and work together to make working in the Albuquerque public schools more rewarding and less stressful so that everybody can address the needs of the students in their care. Please realize that many of the employees are not all right, and that if you work with us in collaboration, we can systematically and positively make change. We have delivered to you tonight the hard copies of the survey. It's for your reading pleasure. There are pictures and it is color coded. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Sarah Hager, followed by Shanice Conley. And you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Tome Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Sarah Hager, Vice President of Membership and Involvement at the Albuquerque Teachers Federation. And tonight I'm speaking on behalf of middle school educators, more specifically about improving middle school collaboration time that is built into the duty day from page 422 of the ATF survey. Middle school educators were very clear. They are not asking for less accountability. They are asking for time, paid, protected, professional time to do their jobs well. The following are 4 direct quotes from middle school educators. I have no paid time to build lessons, reflect, or grade. All that is done on my own time. Please, 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 just let me have time to do what I need to do. If the schools are not given enough FTE, they can't team the way they should. The most significant improvement would be the creation of dedicated, non-negotiable time specifically allocated for collaborative planning, entirely separate from individual planning periods. Middle school is developmentally unique. Interdisciplinary teams are designed to support early adolescence, both socially and academically. Many middle school teachers chose this level on purpose. They embrace the energy, the unpredictability, and yes, sometimes the chaos, because they believe in this age group, but that work requires real structural support. Teaming only works if there is time built into the schedule. Without significant FTE and protected collaboration time, what is intended to be a strength of the middle school model becomes another layer of stress. I'm asking the leadership and board to prioritize increased paid adult time for professional work that includes, but is not limited to, collaboration with colleagues, planning and preparing rich, engaging lessons, and professional duties such as family communication, grading, entering data, and mandatory paperwork. If we want strong middle schools, we must build schedules that reflect that priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shanice Conley, followed by Janet Sayers.
Hello, good afternoon, Board President Tomei Guaritos, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Shanice Conley, and I'm the SET coordinator. SET stands for Special Education Teacher Training, and this is a partnership program. Albuquerque Public Schools and the ATF partner with both CNM and UNM for a year-long teacher preparation residency program. I'm here to speak about special education, specifically our new teachers in special education, and I want to talk about workload. The graphs on page 90 of the ATF survey show that a majority of the special education teachers, and it doesn't matter, it's pre-K all through 12th grade, feel that their workload is getting unmanageable, suggesting significant challenges in balancing their professional responsibilities. Our new teachers start the school year with excitement, hope, and a bit of nervousness. They're excited to join their new school community and work with their new students. Special education is not just about building relationships with students, our communities, and peers. New special education teachers must learn to manage a caseload, teach multiple grade levels, multiple subject areas, monitor student growth, write progress towards goals, learn how to write FBAs, BIPs, and countless forms of documentation to make sure information is accurate in Synergy, and if a support request is needed. I'm concerned that our expectations, even with mentoring and CLIP, which is so important for our newly licensed special education teachers, might be excessive. APS is investing heavily in the SET program with the goal of preparing special education teachers to fit seamlessly into our schools and be well prepared for their first year. My concern is sustainability of our newest teachers and the retention rate of education teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Janet Sayers, followed by Janet Harmon. Is that too high for you?
No, I'm good. Good
Okay.
evening, President Tom Morito, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. I am holding a very important community engagement document. The bracket for the state basketball tournament for boys and girls. If you want to meet up with your community, I urge each one of you to be at the first round games, including the one at Del Norte will be playing Valencia for those of you from Valencia County. And I would just say you're going to interact in about less than an hour, probably with hundreds of moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas. They bring everybody, to cheer on for the state tournament. So all you'll need is something that has your name on it and pointing them to the Let's Talk button on the website, which I've used a lot. So congratulations to the coaches who they're not getting rich coaching for APS but they've dedicated their lives that this is a hook that keeps kids in school. So congratulations to El Dorado Del Norte, Albuquerque High Highland, Atrisco Heritage, La Cueva, Sandia, Volcano Vista, but also those kids at West Mesa, Valley, Manzano, Cibola, and Rio, who are not in the state tournament. But this is a great opportunity. It's so much fun to do this. And you will contribute $5. We don't even get a senior citizen discount. You have to pay $5 no matter what. And then also just commenting that last week we had this really nice housing night at Del Norte, had a pretty good attendance and had some new community partners. So, and Jack Vermillion, who's already slipped out, principal at SY Jackson, he is a proud Del Norte graduate. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Janet Harmon, followed by Sonia Romero Autry. You'll have 2 minutes, ma'am.
Hi, is this level okay?
It's fine for us. I'll just make sure it's comfortable for you.
Okay, thank you for this space. As a parent of 2 APS graduates, I am here today to respond to the parade of community members at the last board meeting who attacked the recent student walkouts protesting the threat of ICE in our schools. There are a few things that need to be corrected for the record. First, every person in this country has a constitutional right to protest. This includes students. Many of the privileges that we all enjoy today, including the 40-hour work week and the integration of our schools, were gained due to protests and strikes. So contrary to the testimony, it is not illegal for students to walk out. Second, many of the speakers spoke as if our children are under the spell of left-wing teachers who are brainwashing them. I suggest they speak to some teenagers. They are perfectly capable of making up their own opinions. They are learning from what their experiences and what they see. If they are immigrants, they are witnessing family members who are following the law and showing up for their hearings, being detained. They are witnessing naturalized citizens being deported. They are witnessing children being separated from their families. If they aren't immigrants, their friends are, and their friends are not showing up at school out of fear of deportation. The speakers seemed obsessed with the fact that some immigrants commit crimes. Really? If you're going to profile, you should be consistent. They should be advocating for locking up all the white young males because a few of them carry out mass shootings. Third, they stated that the president's immigration policies are lawful. The truth is, over 220 federal judges have blocked or ruled against his mass deportation policies over 1,600 times. He's deporting naturalized citizens and immigrants who are following the procedure. Fourth, APS policy clearly states it'll educate all children in our district, regardless of immigration status. So actually, students protesting are in support of APS policy. Albuquerque stands with our students who are brave enough to stand by their convictions, who are willing to take to the streets and protest if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Sonia Romero, Autry, followed by Desiree Spillman.
Good afternoon, Board President Tom Warito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Dr. Sonia Romero Autry, and I have been an educator in Albuquerque Public Schools for 29 years. For 26 years, I have served as a classroom teacher, and for the last 3 years, I have worked as a community school resource teacher, supporting educators across schools. I also have the honor of serving as a union leader, listening closely to the experiences of educators throughout our district. Through these roles, I have seen the dedication of our educators every single day. But I have also seen the pressure building, morale dropping, and the exhaustion growing. The recent ATF survey gave teachers the opportunity to share honestly about their experiences. And what they told us was very clear. Teachers consistently report that responsibilities continue increasing with no removal of outdated tasks. Many describe exhaustion and being able to unfinish required work during contract hours. This is not a reflection of a lack of commitment. It is a reflection of a system that continues to add expectations without creating the conditions for educators to succeed. Research consistently shows something important. Teachers' working conditions are our students' learning conditions. Scholars such as Linda Darling Hammond and the Learning Policy Institute have found that when educators have supportive environments, reasonable workloads, and professional respect, student outcomes improve. So when we talk about educator stress, this is not just about the adults in the building. It is about the learning conditions of our students. The survey also revealed something very important. Many teachers feel micromanaged, dismissed, or unsupported. Teachers want leaders who listen, follow through on behavior expectations, and value teacher expertise and time. This is a call for partnership, because if we do not address the stressors affecting our educators, we're ultimately doing a disservice to the students we serve. Supporting educators is not separate from supporting students. It is one and the same work. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Desiree Spillman.
Good evening, Board President Tom Warito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Desiree Spillman, and I am a special education head teacher at Governor Bent Elementary School. I am speaking about teacher workload on page 88 of the AFT survey, where 48.5% of teachers report that they do not feel their workload is manageable. My story is about the multiple students at my school who need more support than our cross-cap programs could provide. We were told it should only take 6 weeks to collect the data needed to consider additional supports, but it took around 6 months to make it through the process, which includes multiple support and strategies meetings before district leadership finally gave us the red light to offer additional supports. Now this process is also being brought to pre-K. There are no longer district programs such as social communication in preschool. And for students who will need these supports in kindergarten, we have to follow the same procedure, and they have to be brought to leadership before we can offer these valuable supports to families. I am consistently putting in at least 10 hours a week outside the duty day in order to analyze data, complete paperwork, update BIPs, in addition to planning and preparing engaging lessons. I am asking the leadership and board to eliminate superfluous, confusing mandates that have dubious effects on students' learning and educators' ability to meet student needs, and to increase adult time for professional work that includes, but is not limited to, collaboration with colleagues, planning and preparing rich, engaging lessons, and professional duties such as family communication, grading, entering data, and all the other mandatory paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Colin Baugh. You have 2 minutes once you begin speaking, sir.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Board members, good to see everyone. President Tomei Guardito, thank you so much for having me. I'm here as the vice chair of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, having a great opportunity to highlight a collaboration with the first of its kind outdoor Acequia classroom at Via Vista Elementary. We are asking if we could come and bring the principal and the teacher and some students to highlight the success that we've seen in this collaboration, and to kind of profile and bring onto your guys' radar all these other unique projects that are happening in the district around outdoor education and kind of place-based learning, and what the district has been kind of doing to return some flood irrigation back to some of these facilities. So it's a very cool opportunity that I'd ask the board to consider putting us on the agenda for the next upcoming meeting. So we have maybe 10 minutes to bring some people together to really forecast what we're doing, what we're excited for, and maybe what the next steps could be. So thank you for your time. And this is such a great body that you hold. This community comes together to teach, but also to speak about some complex things. So I'm very honored to be here, and thank you for holding the space and doing such great service for the community.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is on Zoom. It'll be Todd Reed. Mr. Reed, are you there? Mr. Reed, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, sir. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Great, thanks. My name is Todd Reed. Good evening. I had some questions concerning field trips and ICE protests and how my tax dollars are being used. I know you can't respond, but we'll send you an email so you can. I was wondering, has the board and PED approved these field trips with your legal counsel? And does your premises liability cover any possible unfortunate consequences that might happen at these field trips? Do your teachers know that they do not have immunity if they have violated New Mexico law and the Constitution? If the teachers selectively permits one political viewpoint but would not permit opposing viewpoints, that exposes APS to claims under 42 USC Statute 1983. Barela versus Board of Regents in the University of New Mexico and Stapleton versus Candera reinforce that APS personnel act under color of state law and may incur liability when exceeding lawful authority. There are provisions within the New Mexico Constitution, Article 2, Section 17, but APS personnel cannot convert classrooms into political advocacy forums. Have these teachers created a lesson plan? If so, has it been cleared by this body? With that being said, I'd like to see the lesson plans of the teachers involved in the ICE protests. I would also like to see how this fits into the APS curriculum. I would like to attend the classrooms to observe the discussions. I would look forward to future discussions concerning this. If teachers are using this forum to support the Constitution amendments to protest, which I applaud, then you cannot just choose certain aspects of the Bill of Rights. You have to abide by all constitutional amendments. You can't pick and choose which one you want to support and then refuse to support others, like the Second Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is in the room, Dr. Sinello, followed by Marcy May.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the school board. Not only am I an alternative health doctor and minister, but I waited 9 years legally to be a naturalized U.S. citizen and taxpayer. First, we the people don't hate you, but love you and want to hold you accountable for being a public servant, reminding you serve us, the community, not the other way around according to our U.S. and New Mexico Constitution. Your oath of office to protecting vulnerable students requires age-appropriate libraries and from sexual trauma, sex trafficking, violent crimes, etc. Do you remember the oath of office you took as school board members? Do you remember what you said? The phrase, and I quote, uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, end quote, as part of its organizational goals. The preamble to the Constitution of New Mexico states, and I quote, we the people of New Mexico grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of liberty in order to secure the advantages of a state government do ordain, and establish this Constitution, end quote. It establishes the state's government and confirms New Mexico as an inseparable part of the federal union. There are key points in New Mexico Constitution in upholding it. Number one, purpose. The preamble emphasized gratitude for liberty and desire to secure the advantages of state government for the people, including students. Number two, federal supremacy. The New Mexico Constitution explicitly states that it is part of the federal union and that its U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Number three, upholding the Constitution. Officials, including school board members and citizens, uphold this document by abiding by its articles, which define the structure of state government, rights of citizens, and legal procedures within New Mexico. Number four, establishment. It was ordained by the people of New Mexico to govern themselves. And thank you. May God have mercy on Albuquerque Public Schools and New Mexico.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Marcy May, followed by Jesse Hunt.
Thank you, Albuquerque Board. I want to read the statement from Albuquerque Teacher Federation's website. The Albuquerque Teacher Federation is committed to improving conditions in teaching and learning in our public schools while advancing the causes of social justice and democracy for our students, our members, our students, and the community. And I would love to be able to see if they would talk about the parents. We have a lot of teachers who are saying we need more time, we need more pay, because that's what it comes down to. As a former APS teacher over at Lowell and Alamosa, I worked with a lot of different students that had a lot of needs. I spent a lot of time putting in IEPs and things like that. I understand the commitment, but if we are going to be like the one person mentioned that, you know, she thought that the people that were talking about the protests last time, that we were just convinced that these left-wing people were doing this. Well, that's really what's in the agenda, and the goal of AFT is to promote social justice. And if we could just get the extra stuff out, and let's actually work on educating and empowering our children how to read, how to write, and how to think for themselves. Because when you have an agenda that's clear that it's going to be social justice, I don't believe that that doesn't translate to what goes into the classrooms. One other thing, please get your app, the phone app, to be able to sign up on APS EDU. I cannot do it. I had to go onto my desktop. That's obstruction and violation of freedom of speech. And it's also discriminatory for those who do not have a desktop. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Jesse Hunt, followed by Michael Anderson. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Jesse Hunt, and I'm here to speak about the Albuquerque Teacher Federation's recent survey that many have spoken about, and why the board should evaluate it carefully before drawing any conclusions. APS employs more than 6,000 teachers. Fewer than 30% responded to the survey. That response rate alone should demand humility in how the findings are presented. Instead, the report frames selective results as if they represent the entire APS workforce. They don't. The survey questions are leading, negatively framed, and designed to surface dissatisfaction. And when you look at the actual results, the majority of teachers rated conditions as fair to excellent. That finding is buried. That is not research, that is confirmation bias. Meanwhile, APS vacancy rates are at their lowest point in years. If working conditions were truly as dire as this report suggests, we would see that in the data that actually matters. We don't. What's most striking is how little students appear in the report. There's almost no discussion of learning consistency, equitable grading, or the students who rely most on structure and clarity. Public education exists to serve students, and this report doesn't reflect that priority. APS already uses panorama surveys to assess student culture and well-being. Expanding that same independent platform to include educator working conditions would produce far more credible data than a union commission instrument with a predetermined conclusion. Educator well-being matters, but it is not served by overstated claims or selective data. Our students deserve honest, independent information and decisions made in their interest. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Anderson, followed by Renee Pacheco. And you'll have 2 minutes once you begin.
Good afternoon, President Tom Morito, board members, and Superintendent Blakey. My name is Michael Anderson. I am the physical education teacher at Inez Elementary School. This is my 28th and final year teaching all at Inez. I believe this is my 5th time speaking to the board advocating for the health and wellness of our students. The first time was to promote the need for consistent recess time for elementary school kids. I spoke out against a district allowing ROTC and marching band being a substitute for high school physical education. And 2 times before today, I have spoken about the district's insistence on cutting elementary PE programs. Well, it seems as though the district has made a definitive decision to put the health and wellness of students on the back burner. You have decided to cut the majority of PE programs to half-time. Not only is this going to be detrimental to our students becoming physically literate, but you've also chosen to put the careers and lives of many certified educators in turmoil. Every student deserves quality full-time physical education, which includes at least 60 minutes of instructional time taught by a certified teacher. We know through research that increasing, not decreasing, our PE not only improves the health and wellness of our kids, but also improves academic performance. If a student struggles in math, they may not grow up to be an accountant. If they have a difficult time finding their voice in their writing, they may not grow up to be an author. I fear that the health and wellness of students who are physically illiterate, I fear for their health. If they aren't taught how to take care of the one body they have, nothing else really matters. So many of our students' lives live lives of high trauma and anxiety. They spend much of their free time in front of screens, which exacerbates their level of anxiety. Movement helps alleviate anxiety and depression. APS's goal 4 is skills, habits, and mindsets. I honestly can't think of a more important skill, habit, or mindset for kids than understanding how to take care of and advocate for their wellness. Kids deserve full-time physical education.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Renee Pacheco, followed by Rachel Baucom.
All right. I am a teacher and I know that listening to the parents is very important. I want what's best for the children and developing a team to get them there is crucial. A parent has commented to the Dean of 9th grade students in public schools in Albuquerque. She was troubled by her child's grades and skipping classes. So she took it to the dean. The dean responded by saying, "You should see the other children's grades." No response of help or how to get better, but instead you should lower your expectations. The response to skipping was of equal measure. The solution to the parent was to switch schools. Children will rise to your challenges, your expectations. They will see your belief in them that they can succeed. Yet parents have been kept in the dark by teachers if the child wants to change their name. their clothes, and even their gender. A child is to be guided by their parents, teachers, and principals. In the news, a school in Washington state took 5 days to notify the parents about their daughter being beat up for having a boyfriend that has considering becoming an ICE agent. This is uncalled for. I want to protect the students, and you should have the same priority. In response to the immigration, if immigration and ICE issues are so important, why aren't families participating with students on weekends and after school hours? Why is it done during school hours when it is their time to learn to read, to write, and other things like arithmetic?
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Rachel, I believe it's Balcom.
Good afternoon, Board President Tom Warithos, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Rachel Baucom. I am a first grade dual language teacher at East San Jose Elementary School. I am speaking in reference to the ATF survey, the pie graphs on page 88, where 56.4% of elementary educators reported their workload is unmanageable, and the pie graph on page 408, where 77% of elementary educators report that they have insufficient time to plan for and deliver instruction. Every year, and I know some of it's the state, I am given more mandates, more testing, more paperwork. I am spending more time documenting and justifying my teaching than I am spending planning and teaching. BIPs, FBAs, SAT, data, MLSS, grading, data dialogues, additional surveys, communications, and more rob my planning time. For example, last month, I spent over 8 hours on one FBA BIP. Meanwhile, Amira, iStation, progress monitoring, and screeners rob my students of quality instructional time. I have 45 minutes a day, roughly, to do all the paperwork, mandatory trainings, and other required mandates. But that is also my prep time. This is a problem. I also have a family. I am a caregiver for a disabled husband, yet I am constantly under pressure to do this excessive level of work. I should not have to sacrifice my personal and my family time for uncompensated mandated paperwork. Yet every week, here I am. I know for a fact the best way to improve student achievement is to allow quality instruction, not paperwork. It is not by micromanagement. It is not by paperwork. It is not by bullying. It is by allowing teachers to do what they trained to do and give them uninterrupted time to plan and teach. I became a teacher to empower, enrich, and inspire, not to push papers. This needs to change. We need to allow teachers the time they need for quality planning so that they can teach kids, inspire kids, help kids become their best selves. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is on Zoom, Allison Stepp. Are you there, Allison?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Board President Tomei Warithos, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Allison, and I'm a special education teacher at Monzano High School. I'm speaking about communication, specifically the findings on pages 175 through 184 of the ATF survey. One of the occurring concerns in the survey is the lack of clear, consistent written policies that educators can rely on. Too often, information travels through hearsay. One school is told one thing, another school is told something different, and there is no central document or location to reference for clarity. For example, a few years ago, our school was told that the district was streamlining course codes for district programs so that if a student transferred across town, their schedule and credits would align more seamlessly. That sounded like a strong student-centered improvement. However, when I spoke to a colleague at another high school with the same program, she had never heard of this initiative. When policies are not clearly documented and communicated consistently across sites, it creates confusion for educators and instability for students. In special education, where compliance and continuity matter deeply, that lack of clarity can have serious consequences. I am asking the leadership and the board to implement recommendation 5 from the executive summary by establishing an APS ATF committee to review current policies and practices and make binding recommendations. We need clear written guidance and consistent communication across schools and systems that ensure all educators are operating from the same information. Clarity is not a luxury, it is necessary for us to serve students effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is also on Zoom, Travis McKenzie.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
All right. Thank you so much. Good evening, Board Member President Tome Juarito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. I'm here tonight to talk about a variety of things. To start, I would like to stand in solidarity and support of our students, staff, and community that have expressed themselves in the walkouts and exercised their constitutional right to speak out against issues that concern them and us and our community. So just wanted to stand in solidarity and second all the things that have been said in support of our students. Student and youth leadership has been the foundation for social movements for generations, and we need to honor student voice and listen to the concerns of our students, staff, community, and families. Also, as a first-year IC chair, I'm here also to stand in solidarity with the teachers expressing being overwhelmed. We just went through our budget process and wanted to express the budget cuts were brutal. We're losing an amazing teacher, and I know other schools are losing more than that. And I think creating an equitable, timely budget process is very important. Would like to work with the board on that. But also I'm here to celebrate. We just had a STEAM extravaganza where we brought 30 students from Polk Middle School to Los Padillas Elementary to do activities around composting, planting seeds, environmental stewardship, and sustainability. And I'm here with my compañero Colin Baugh to also request that we could get on the board to talk about Acequia education. He mentioned Via Vista and the amazing outdoor Acequia learning space they've been able to create. And Polk celebrating that Dr. Blakey has given us permission to move forward and work with MRGCD to create access to our Acequia and be able to implement that as part of our curriculum and our cultural relevant experiences that we offer at our school. And so just in support of school gardens, farm to school initiatives, outdoor learning, I hope that we can work together collaboratively to continue to support these initiatives and deal with the challenging times that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in the room, Margaret Hornbeck.
Good afternoon, President Tome Mauricio, and board members and Superintendent Blakely. My name is Margaret Hornbeck. I teach at Monte Vista Elementary School. I'm a PE teacher. I'm here to talk to you about the importance of PE in our schools and our district. I'm one of the distinguished PE teachers here today. I have been a recipient of several awards along with my colleagues. We have also won many grants. I wanted to share with you this because we're professionals and we know what is best for students, which is PE. We know what quality PE looks like and what is best for kids in schools. The first time you see a student get up on a long paddleboard and you know that they can transfer these skills to real life and ask their parents for a paddleboard because they enjoy the experience so much. If you want to see what it is like to be a rock star, go to any school and watch the PE teacher walk around on campus. You will feel like a rock star. Students love PE and want to be in it all the time. Students want to move and learn. I invite you to come see any of my classes or my colleagues' classes at Wherry Elementary, Inez Elementary, myself, Monte Vista Elementary, Lava Land, and Los Padillas. We are extinguished PE teachers, and we want to share with you what we do. We have found many schools are getting PE cut. I am here today asking for support and for the board to help us find that this does not happen. We want to see that students have joy and keep moving. Please come and see what we do and watch why cutting PE is not best practices for students. Remember, we are all here for kids and what is best for kids, and that is PE.
Thank you. And our next speaker is on Zoom, Teddy Tonanoli. Teddy, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Board President Tom Morito, Superintendent Blakey, and members of the board. My name is Teddy Tonioli. I am a teacher at Monzano High School, and I'm speaking about the high school section of the ATF survey regarding the academies of Albuquerque. The survey shows that many high school educators feel they do not have a meaningful opportunity to provide input on academy decisions. I want to share what that looks like in practice. I myself designed an entire course aligned to my school's pathway. I built it intentionally, thoughtfully, and in good faith, believing that academies are meant to foster innovation, real-world relevance, and student engagement. I was excited because I believed this was exactly what the Academy's model was designed to encourage. However, the course was denied. What was most difficult was not simply the denial, it was the lack of clarity around why. What are the criteria? What is the long-term vision? How are the pathway decisions made? And how can educators meaningfully contribute to shaping them? When teachers are encouraged to innovate and then receive decisions without transparency or collaboration, it creates confusion and discouragement. It makes us question whether academies are truly about teacher-driven design and student-centered learning, or about compliance with a structure that we don't fully understand. I'm lucky, as through my position in our union, I was able to get this clarification while others were not. I am asking the board and district leadership on behalf of those who don't have my platform to provide written, clear criteria for academy course approval, establish a transparent feedback and appeal process, and meaningfully include educators in shaping pathway decisions. If academies are meant to personalize learning and prepare students for the future, then teacher expertise must be a part of that design. Thank you.
Thank you. President Tom Morito, that completes public forum.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 6 on our agenda, student outcome focused governance. And we want to consider acceptance of the progress monitoring reports for interim goal point 1.1 and 1.2 early literacy. Presenters are Dr. Gabriela Duran-Blakey, Superintendent, Dr. Randy Mallory, Deputy Superintendent, Leadership and Learning, Sherry Jett, Chief Academic Officer, and Anna Chavez, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Schools.
Madam President, members of the board, earlier tonight, we recognized the principals at some of our schools for impressive gains in their students' reading. Their growth reflects the broader progress that we are seeing across the district. We now bring you the progress monitoring reports for interim goals 1.1 and 1.2, which are the first and second grade indicators that show how we are building toward goal 1, which is third grade reading proficiency. The progress monitoring reports outline the data, the student group trends, and the actions underway across schools. These early grade checkpoints are important because they tell us whether our youngest learners are developing the foundational skills that they need to be confident, fluent readers. This is our first year using AMIRA, which is the state required K through third grade literacy assessment. Because this tool is new, this mid-year data offers an early snapshot of student performance. I am happy to report that we are on track and we are seeing notable growth, as you heard earlier this evening, in several student groups. At mid-year, 24.4% of our first grade Yazzie Martinez plus African-American students scored proficient or above, which is more than a percentage point above our 3-year goal. And 32.5% of second grade students in the same groups reached proficiency, which is more than 8 points above our 3-year goal. Monitoring progress matters because it shows us whether our systems and supports are closing long-standing gaps for our historically underserved students. We look forward to the conversation tonight about our interim goals 1.1 and 1.2 progress monitoring report.
Okay, so
Board President, before we continue, can we please motion and second to keep this item considered?
Thank you. Yes, let's go ahead and get a motion on the floor and a second.
I move we accept the progress monitoring reports for interim goals 1.1 and 1.2 early literacy. This is Member Jackson. I will second Member Astorga.
Okay, Board Member Jackson, motion to accept the progress monitoring reports, and Board Member Astorga seconded. So I want to also decide whether the report has the 4 critical elements. We need to confirm that our monitoring report is complete. In assessing whether it is complete, we review 4 elements: the goal, the data, the interpretation, and the evidence and plan. That review includes asking questions such as, does the report show the specific goal being monitored? Does it clearly show data for the previous 3 reporting periods? Does it clearly show the superintendent's understanding of system performance relative to the goals? And does it clearly show supporting documentation that shows evidence of a strategic response if the goal is on track, or root cause analysis if it is not on track? I believe that all of the criteria of the effective report has met is one thing we'll decide, and we'll put, but I will open the floor for anyone who thinks we are missing any one of the elements. Does anyone have evidence that suggests an element is missing?
Oh, go ahead. I don't have any evidence, any questions that evidence is missing, but since this is being live streamed just for the purpose of letting the public know what's going on, I just want to say, first of all, congratulations to all the schools that are doing a great job. It's really, really hard to make progress in these areas. And so congratulations to the superintendent, congratulations to the principals, and congratulations to all the teachers. Your hard work is recognized. We're seeing progress. It's fantastic. And I mean, numbers like 28%, 25%, these are huge numbers. Just for the purpose of clarity, could our wonderful staff please tell us, are there any schools we're seeing that are either trending down or where we're not seeing, good improvement for Martinez Yazzie?
We'll get into that discussion. Hold that thought.
Okay.
And Board Member Benson.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you guys all for answering all my questions. I know I sent in a whole bunch of questions, and I just really want to understand, Amira and why we're using it. I know that we're using it because it is state mandated for the assessment part, but then we're using it in APS for, I guess, instruction, you would say. And so when I look at these questions, are we meeting these questions? Does the report show specific goals being monitored? The report clearly identifies that the goal and how the interim goal supports the long-term district goal. But the district switched from iStation to Amira in 2025 and 2026. So when we're looking at early results, may not be directly comparable. When you're looking at 2 different tests, when you're looking at apples and oranges, you can't directly be comparable. And the report does show multiple previous report periods, but trend interpretation is limited because the assessment tool changed. So I'm questioning if we are really able to clearly show that the data from previous 3 reporting periods, because we don't have 3 reporting periods. That's the first one. Looking through the report, the second question, does it clearly show the superintendent's understanding of the system performance relative to the goals? So the report also highlights subgroups results, such as, Native American students at 28.3% proficient, and English language learners at 18 point, sorry, I gotta put my glasses on, 18.6%, and students with disabilities at 13%, and African American students at 33.9%. However, the report does not explicitly say whether the district is on track or off track. I heard the superintendent say just a few minutes ago that we're on track, but the report didn't specifically say it. So I know I wrote it down. It provides an interpretation, but it stops short of a clear conclusion. And then, does it clearly show supporting documentation that shows evidence of a strategic response if the goal is on track, or a root cause analysis if it is not on track? I would say so several things: the assistant superintendent coaching, AMIRA implementation, structured literacy walkthroughs, learning labs for teachers. All of these things describe planned actions and why they matter. However, the report does not clearly show a root cause analysis explaining why certain student groups are not improving, evidence showing which strategies are producing the gains, and data demonstrating the impact or fidelity of implementation. So with all that being said, I would say the report shows strategic actions, but does not clearly demonstrate how these strategies, were selected based on root cause analysis or evidence of impact. So I don't know. I know that's a lot. And I kind of went through each question and tried to say, okay, you know, are we doing this? Because I don't want to keep coming here and voting yes, 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 when I really am not understanding why, you know, I'm voting yes. So I really tried to do my homework. And you know, if you have questions, you can, or comments, let me know.
President Tomorito and members of the board, if I'll try to remember what you said. So if I just feel free. So if we're talking about the elements in the report, from what I think you had asked, the first one was about if it shows the previous data. It does, the graphs do show the previous data. It is true that the test changed. We can go into kind of in the next set of questions, like how that translates to it, but the technical part of does the graph show previous data? It does with the data that we've been using. The trajectory of this year, it was the same test. So from the fall to the mid-year, which is what we're looking at, particularly in the orange line, that fall test to the growth of what schools made from fall until winter in mid-year, that is the same test that was used. The root cause, we typically were guided in how we were trained to do progress monitoring reports, that the root cause is done if we are off track. So since this is on track and the trajectory is showing that we are meeting the goal because the mid-year is above the goal, we don't do root cause unless we're off track, because the idea is that you would keep using the strategies that are working instead of like trying to do a new strategy every time that you're doing another progress monitoring report. So for consistency for our staff, if the results are showing that they are moving forward in a trajectory, then the majority of those strategies stay so we can see if it's consistent growth.
Okay. I might have to sit down with you and like go through this on one-on-one.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so right now with those questions on the table, do you think there's missing elements based on the discussion a little?
You know, I think what I would like to do is sit down with her and so I don't know, can I abstain from voting? Yeah. So yeah, okay.
Okay. well, let's go ahead and take a vote so we can proceed with the presentation.
Can we clarify what we're voting on first?
Right, or not.
Board President, I think we're just having
This-
consensus that.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So we can move on.
That's
to
right.
questions.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. That's at the end. Okay. But yes, so well, let's go ahead then. Then we'll proceed forward with the presentation. Are we already
Is
seeing?
there consensus?
Oh, consensus. I'm sorry. Is there consensus right now?
Yes,
Okay.
those of us remaining.
Remaining, except for one.
Except for one.
Okay. Except for two. Okay, we got two that are not. in
I will try to get my schedule to work with yours to come to that meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and have the presentation. Bye.
We don't have a formal presentation other than what you have in front of us and what I had spoken on, which I probably did too soon. But we are open to questions.
Great. Who wants to go ahead and start with the questioning? Well,
Just to give the guidelines. For new board members especially.
sure. Okay, we got a few criteria here that now that we have the opportunity to ask questions as part of our monitoring conversation. Typically, we have asked questions that are either technical or tactical in nature before tonight's meeting, and that's what Board Member Benson was talking about.
I'm sorry, this is written to be stated after we've done that, but I think it would be helpful if board members knew that most of us are required to ask a question.
Yes.
And they should be smart in nature and.
And yes, and that's we're also talking about the SMART questions and how we deliver those questions. We do have a process and a way of measurement and focused on those questions. So just a reminder that they're oriented, result driven, and time bound. So this conversation and our questions are tools to help us decide whether the reality of this report meets our vision of the goal. There's growth toward the vision. There's a strategy and a plan sufficient to cause growth toward the vision. Now, since the new board members are still learning this process, we are going to allow a bit of grace. And I know that we're still working on how we do the tactical and strategic questioning for this evening. So let's go ahead. Who wants to start first? Okay, Board Member Astorga.
Thank you, President Tomorito, and thank you, team, for putting this report together. I also just wanted to commend those board members who did submit technical and tactical questions. They were really great. I went through all 9 pages. So thank you, staff, for answering those questions because it helped me as well. So I have 2 questions on this report. The first one is in 1.1. So just some background. You had mentioned before that Amira allows teachers to listen to students and be able to give feedback. So my question is on those strategies. So what strategies are teachers being asked to use during one-on-one sessions with students? And how are we ensuring that Amira programs are still allowing for individual connection, development, and learning between teachers and students?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Yes, as we've mentioned before, Amira is a tool that helps support teachers in their one-on-one or small group instruction. So as teachers gather information, qualitative and quantitative, they are able to compare it to other tools that are available to them. The strategies that they decide on typically are supported either through their instructional councils or through 90-day plans, as well as grade level collaborations and teacher expertise and knowledge that they are willing to either try because of a recent training or they have also agreed on with instructional council pieces as well.
Thank you. Are there specific points where teachers have to do one-on-ones? Is there like criteria where teachers have to feel that like, yes, I did a one-on-one with the student, so it's not just being overlooked?
So members of the board and Superintendent Blakey, as far as requirements of interactions between teacher and student, it's always best practice to get some one-on-one time. We do not right now have requirements of a certain time amount. However, a lot of those decisions are based on student need. So if we are seeing that students are requiring more help, we also have systems in layer 2 and 3 to help with interventions as well. But in layer 1, with small group instruction and being able to really recognize the needs, that would then determine the amount of time a student would need individually with a teacher or in an intervention setting.
Okay. I'm just hoping that, I know we have a lot of comments of ensuring that students don't spend all their time on computers, on screens. So just ensuring that there is time set aside for that relationship building, that one-on-one, and not necessarily when it leads to an intervention or when an intervention is needed, but before, so we can get that relationship building and that time for interaction. I also have another question, President Tomorito. Okay, so this question is on 1.2. Let me go to it real quick. So this is about the graph, the figure 2 to be exact. Let me just pull out my comment. Diligent deleted my comment question, so I'm gonna try to remember exactly how I put it. But in figure 2, we see that phonological awareness is decreased a little bit in middle of year. So what strategies are we using to specifically monitor the phonological awareness of students in 2nd grade so that that doesn't continue to decrease?
Madam President, members of the board, superintendent. In discussion with our teaching and learning staff, what we recognized is when students pass a certain level or they start to access certain components of the reading rope that are starting to become assessed as well as reviewed, we are finding that students are accessing components a little bit earlier than what might be instructed. So that might be the dip that we see. However, we do have strategies that are outlined that we can take a look at through letters, training strategies, as well as our units of study, as well as our core curriculum. We are also offering training for teachers in the area of reading, science of reading. So I would say that if we see that dip, it's because our students are increasing in what is becoming available in that platform. And then teachers are able to take a look at those tools and figure out how to plan accordingly.
Yeah, first grade was like up here, so I don't want that dip in 2nd grade to keep going. So thank you for already looking at that and creating some planned actions. So I appreciate it.
Okay, next. Board Member Benson.
Right. Like I said, thank you for answering all my questions prior. I know it was a long list. One of my questions was about the for students below the 61st percentile received interventions, what percentage are expected to move to at least one performance band? And then in my question, I asked about the intervention. And when I read how the response, it sounds to me like, well, let me just ask you person to person, what does the daily life of a student who is performing below the 61st percentile look like in a classroom? Like, what are they doing different? Because it does talk about intervention, but it's my understanding that a lot of the interventionists are being cut. So what does the intervention look like for these kids?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Intervention is based off of student need. And what we are seeing is Amira as a tool is providing us information for our students that are performing below 61%. That is one piece of evidence that teachers are utilizing. So they are actually lesson planning, being able to meet students where they are and looking at the skills specifically that are showing up. So if, for example, a student is showing in an area component of phonological awareness, they will take a look at other instructional strategies to help students understand, and then also figure out activities for students to show us a different way to show what they know. So they may not know how to do it in a standardized form, but they might be able to orally explain their understanding. And then teachers will have the ability to figure out how to close that gap. So if they can demonstrate their understanding while talking and working through an activity, then the teacher is able to figure out how to help students demonstrate that in a more standardized way. So it really depends on the teacher level of making sure that students are on track, but also, you know, teachers have that ability to be able to do that in real time. And then it's hopeful that during the collaboration time, they're talking with their grade level peers to figure out if things are not working. So I think it's very much, that's the art of it, but also based in the science of figuring out what exactly skills they need to sharpen. So that, I'm not sure if I have been able to explain that very clearly, but it's definitely a process. We have systems of support and we have multiple people on campus able to help the teacher with that.
I guess the response that I got on here makes it sound like the kids are in front of the computer a whole lot more. And so I'm trying to clarify, is this like a kid is already frustrated, he's going to be put in front of the computer for extended time to do these lessons? Or is this more of an opportunity for that student to work one-on-one with a person, you know, a teacher or an educational assistant or an interventionist? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to picture what this looks like for this child that is already frustrated, and to be putting in front of a computer. I mean, I was a computer teacher. I love computers, but I also know that kids being put in front of a computer is a good excuse to do other things, you know, not really do what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm just trying to get an idea, like, what does this really look like realistically in a classroom when a teacher has 25 students and this kid is already underperforming, and what does that look like for that child is what I'm trying to get at.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you for the question. It's a question that we've had too, as we look at how we use the tools, both the core and the intervention materials that we provide to our teachers in terms of what does the screen time look like. And so what we have done is gone through and looked at if a student, to your point about the daily experience, is experiencing both the recommended core screen time, because our core also comes with opportunities to be online or in a platform, as well as intervention. For our K-1 students, and there are no official guidelines, but no more than 60 minutes a day. And then for our 2-3, no more than 90 minutes a day. And that would be at the very far outside for instructional time. And please be clear, we're talking about instructional time, not time we spend on YouTube or, whatever is maybe happening in a classroom, for students who finish early or something along those lines. So for our core, it requires 15 to 25 minutes for the student to be online. And that's in our K-1, and our intervention is 15 to 25. So that's a total of perhaps 50 minutes if a student was experiencing both of those platforms in one day, which is under our threshold. And then for our second graders, the core requires up to 30 minutes, requires isn't quite the right word, allows up to 30 minutes, and intervention could be up to 40 to 60 minutes. That's still within our threshold. So I appreciate the question because we've been really thinking about it too. What we don't want is classrooms, especially at this age level, where our students are primarily on screens. We know the value of interaction, their social development, manipulatives, traditional teaching, those interactions with the teachers that we know are so important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I did have one other question, but it just slipped out of my mind. So we'll go and I might come back.
Thank you, President Tomarito, and thank you all for being here this evening. My question is in reference to Interim Goal 1.2. Native American students demonstrated notable gains, an increase of 11.9 percentage points. That's fantastic. And so it's a three-parter. Have we identified the strategies that contributed to that growth? And if so, has the district considered whether those practices could be replicated across other student groups and schools? And finally, does a timeline exist for evaluating and expanding those practices?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you for your question. So what we do also recognize is that our interim goal work as well as our goal 1 work is not isolated work. We work in collaboration with multiple goals, and one of the more important goals that we partner with is goal 4 and looking at culture of care. So bringing in our sense of belonging and our training in those areas and our understanding and strategies through those pieces help us build those core relationships to be able to have the conditions to be able to learn in a safe and welcoming environment.
I love that. Thank you.
Board Member Jackson.
Okay. So my question is kind of a follow-up to the technical question that I sent in regards to it was the first one is that there's Amira and iStation how are they similar and how are they different? And you answered the question very technically, very specifically, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to kind of pull it up a little bit to try to address the impact between the two different systems, which I think is probably getting at what Board Member Betson was maybe a little uncomfortable with, is that we have 2 assessments that are on this report. So I think that it is important to remember that assessments are here to or exist to tell us how students are doing. And I think regardless of the tool that we use, it's actually the standards themselves is what we're measuring. And those standards should remain consistent across assessments. So my question is, with the state changing the assessment, because I do want to point that out, this was not an APS decision to change this assessment. This was a requirement from the state. Can you explain how the Amira system that we are using, how it provides a rigorous and honest measure of student reading progress, and how it aligns to the standards that are being measured? Part 2, because I always have 2 parts. Why does maintaining a consistent assessment based on standards matter if we want a clear and reliable picture of student outcomes over time?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So to answer the first question, so iStation, they call it the iStation ISIP, and then this is now Amira ISIP. They both measure, they're based on the science of reading. So they're actually not measuring standards, or measuring what they call early literacy skills. So I'm lucky enough to have a real rope on my desk, but there's a Scarborough's rope is what it's based on, if you ever want to look that up. But it talks about, and that's what you'll see in that figure 2 in each of the reports. They're both measuring decoding, phonological awareness, high frequency words, background knowledge, vocabulary, word recognition, language comprehension, and structures and reasoning. So both of the tests were designed to measure those. The difference, the big difference, is the difference between a student doing multiple choice, fill in the blank type questions, which is what iStation was, and what the state test, like the NMMSSA that we use, that's how it is also constructed. The Amira test, the part that we find exciting about it is actually, if you want to know how a student can read, listen to them read. So it actually listens to them read. And in doing so, when they developed the test, they are listening to students read passages, and it was actually developed at Carnegie Mellon, and they did it with many, many years, many different students, to try to distinguish whether the students were actually able to demonstrate that they could do the various parts of that reading rope or the early literacy skills. So I like to say that it's apples and oranges. However, what it's measuring is the same. It's just that it's using, in my opinion, a more rigorous approach. If anybody was here before iStation, we used to have DIBELS was the test, and that was a one-on-one administered test. So I like to think of Amira, instead of the teacher spending time with every single student. Doesn't mean they don't also do that as part of their instruction. This is emulating that. So it's having the student read the passage to the computer or to the microphone, right? And then it's basing what it hears to try to figure out where they are in terms of their reading ability. And one of the reasons, just so I know, there were also questions about the algorithm and how it works. So unlike iStation, which would produce instant results, there's actually a delay in the results that we receive. So it does take a 24-hour period because it's actually going through and it's listening, it's looking for background knowledge. I know that one of the board questions mentioned I have to remember the exact word, but the idea of looking for the error correction. Like there's a lot of things going in so that they built it so that they felt very confident, which is why it was adopted, that it would give us a better measure of reading. So they are different tests. However, they are both intended to measure the same thing. So I know it's a lot, but I hope that helps a little bit.
No, I mean, I think that is a good conversation for us to have, right? Because our responsibility is to scrutinize the tools that you are using to determine whether or not they are leading to an impact to improve the goals. And so I'm confident that what you just described is that no matter which assessment we are using, we are still measuring whether or not our their early literacy skills. And so I have a second question, but I will ask a point blank question, and I might just ask it to Superintendent Blakey. Are you confident that the assessment, the tool, is leading to a better understanding of the impact for our students? Yes, Board President, members of the board, we do feel like it is, as far as measuring goal 1, and if we feel like it's showing whether our students are on track or not on track in their reading, we do feel like it is giving us that information.
Okay, and is rigorous and is high quality and is like all of the things that go with our guardrails. Okay. I have a second question, but I can wait.
Right, okay. Board Member Bowman?
Board President Tomarito, when it's appropriate, let me rephrase my question in a more smart way, although it was pretty close. So I'm not sure if this is the appropriate moment to ask this, but again, we've heard some good news about numbers that are going up. And the question I wanted to ask is, how are we doing in terms of where are areas where we're struggling? And I'm going to make this more precise under our SMART thing. For our first graders, where are we seeing students or groups among Martinez Yazzie struggling for first graders within the past year? Do we have any information that can help us understand groups that are not doing as well in first grade?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Not 100% positive. I understand the question, but what I'll respond to is when we from the data presented in 1.1, we're dealing with first graders. The data looks pretty consistent among all the early leadership skills. What our teachers are doing every day is they're identifying specific needs for specific kids. And so you're identifying, like what was talked about earlier was screen time. So what our teachers are doing is identifying areas where specific kids may be struggling. And as you look on here, this is all the kids, and doing small group instruction to work on those specific areas. I think that what I also believe is that our teachers are also using, as they are organizing their classrooms between layer 1 instruction, small group instruction, that's where they're implementing Amira tutoring with our students, and that's where you get some of the screen time. So I think we're pretty consistent, but I think where your answer really lies is in the classroom with the specific teachers, and our teachers know our students, and that's where that's where those deficiencies are being addressed daily.
Okay. Maybe I didn't ask the question correctly. So, do we have any sense of what groups are not showing proficiency? Or alternatively, do we have any sense of demographic groups that are not showing as much proficiency in first grade?
Madam President, members of the board. So if on page 4 of the, I think you're talking about specifically about first grade. So we do break down each of the student groups that are part of the Yazzie Martinez decision, as well as African American students. And across the board there, we're seeing growth in all the groups. And that's just, and I think to answer also your question, so that's the data that we look at, right? Like that's our measure, that's our check. And then just as we are doing progress monitoring with you, we also do it with ourselves. And that's the type of data that we look at. And then also, not to speak for Ms. Chavez, but that's also the type of data that the assistant superintendents look at with the principals committee.
Yes. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, thank you, Mr. West, for leading into that. Our principal coaching with our assistant superintendents primarily focuses on strategies that are showing effective, and we figure out where our schools are and coach up and offer supports so that we can ensure that those strategies are taking place. So while we try not to focus too much on what's not working, we definitely coach up to what is and figure out what the gaps in resources are that are needed to be able to get that school in that space.
Thank you.
All right, my question. I know last time we indicated there were challenges in reading comprehension. And I know this time we don't have root cause analysis. That's how it was determined last time. And I wanted to know how we can determine whether comprehension has actually increased and what data assessments you're using to ensure that progress is measurable, and what evidence-based strategies are you using that will sustain that?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So just to clarify, it's to understand how comprehension is increasing?
Yes.
Thank you. So how we are taking a look at it is creating spaces for deeper personalized learning, project-based learning. When we give our students multiple ways to show us what they know, we are able to gather multiple points of information to put together to create the teacher's understanding of what the student understanding is. And then, like I had mentioned before, when we're able to take a look and triangulate all of those pieces, we can figure out how to close the gap of teaching a student how to demonstrate their understanding in a more standardized way. So that's really where a lot of the authentic understanding is happening in some of those spaces, student interest-based, in how to connect it to the standards and skills, and maybe building some background knowledge on where they've seen that before. So what we are seeing right now is the opportunities with deeper personalized learning, project-based learning, as well as differentiated ways to show us what they know.
My concern is just like everyone here with the amount of screen time, amount of how we're creating the conversations with students about what they're learning, what they're going through, morale, whether or not they are appreciating or feeling really good about reading. It's just a concern. So I don't know how that through Amira is being translated to the student. I know there's little, I know there's little awards, or I don't know how you appreciate or tap the back or give a high five if they're doing really good. That's another question to you. How are we showing students the goodness of reading without using Amira, and that are people actually, teachers, letting those students know, parents letting their students know that they are doing well, or if they have questions to go to an adult who, that those processes and how they're creating the conversations they need when they have concerns or not feeling good or are feeling good about reading.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. What I do want to clarify, and I know we're talking a lot about Amira, but Amira is a small part of what's happening in the daily classroom experience for a student. It is a supplement as well as the assessment that we've been guided by the PED to use. And our core curriculum has a different name. It's called SAVIS. It's a high quality instructional material. And that is where the student is spending, particularly to literacy, the bulk of the time. And so the focus is on a strong layer 1 experience for all students. And I just want to make sure we set Amira over here for assessment, data collection, data analysis, and then it also offers that additional tool of the tutoring to provide support to the teacher in filling gaps that a student might need. As far as how we are celebrating reading, I know that that is something that's really important to all of our teachers. I don't know that I can speak, maybe Ms. Chavez can, to a standardized way of doing that. Other than certainly we help the students look at their data, understand their data, know where they might need to work, help communicate that with our families, think about how we can engage the home in early literacy. Those are definitely strategies as a part of helping our students become readers, because it's dear to my heart. I know how important being a reader is. It really is the gateway to all learning.
And President, members of the board, I just want to piggyback on what Chief Jett said, because I think it is important to note that Amira is the tool we're using to assess, but I go to classrooms every week, and in elementary classrooms, you see a variety of instruction happening. You see teachers reading, whole group, small group. A lot of the things that you'll see them with a device is when they're doing more personalized learning, and the teacher will have them in small groups, and they're working with, 5 students personally while other kids are working on something else. And so it's not like they're all, as Chief Jett was talking, I was like, oh, I didn't realize there could be this assumption that you walk into a first grade class and it's just like robots on a computer. And I have never been in a classroom that I've seen that in the classrooms that I've had the opportunity to visit. When I do ask the students what they're doing, and it's Amira, they often are doing it in individualized while the teacher is working in person with another group, and then they rotate through. So it's just another tool, but you'll see a lot of what we would say traditional approaches too, as far as teachers reading. We have library for all of our students. They check out books. They have a lot of, when you were asking about rewards, I've seen a lot of schools do like the one book, one school, where they're reading a book throughout the whole school. I've seen them get, stars for how many books they read by the end of the semester. So there's a variety of things, but this is just, Amira itself is a tool that's used as part of a much larger toolbox of what the teachers have.
Thank you. And the second part of this is just with parents, guidance measures. How are we providing that so when those kids do go home, because there's television, there's more computer time, they're playing their games, how are we creating guidance measures on screen time for parents?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, I'm hesitant to do that. There are many organizations, I'm thinking like the Academy of Pediatrics, that have researched this and provided guidelines. As we have started to think about establishing preliminary guidelines, because we don't want students on screens all day, we've accessed those particular I would say more research and evidence-based resources and guidelines. That is an area I feel like we would want to tighten up, but we also, in our communication with parents, we want them to be aware of screen time and how it influences development according to the research. And I think right now we're in a space where we really have shifted into more of a online personalized space, which I think has tremendous power, but also we need to think about how we help parents understand that without certainly dictating what should be happening in the home.
It's just a concern because these are young. They're very young. And when you go into a restaurant and you see all family members on a phone and they're not talking with one another, and I'm like, so how are we preparing and meeting and helping parents decide that this should be monitored in some way? Because it's just very concerning. Thank you. Second questions, anybody who wants to go second round? Storia? No? All right, Board Member Benson.
All right, so I know Mr. West brought up Dibbles. And Dibbles is great because, you know, you have that one-on-one interaction and the teacher can see when the student is getting frustrated, and that's when they know that they've gotten to their level. I recently was talking to a young man, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to get him in trouble, but he tells me that he's sitting in front of Amira and he just stayed quiet. And then Amira came and said, "Way to go, good job." So how do we know there's not this, what is the rate of error, and how do we know that it's really evaluating the kid where they're at? Like, because when we're talking to people and there's this human interaction, we know, okay, this student is frustrated. But whenever we're talking to a computer, and he said the computer kept telling him, "Way to go," and would go on to the next level and then say, "Way to go." And he just sat there quiet. He didn't say anything. And then the one other comment I want to talk about is that I was the test coordinator at my school, and students, I would do the WIDA testing with them. And I'm talking middle schoolers. They hated talking into the microphone. You get 5 of them in a room because you had to do 5 kids at a time, no more than 5 kids. And they'd be over there talking like this into the microphone. And it's like, you guys got to talk louder. So how do you know that, like, are you seeing the kids like excited to talk when there's a whole room of kids around them? And, you know, how do we know that it's picking up what the kids are saying and it's really measuring them and not everything else, you know? So those are, I don't know. I'm assuming some of that's not you guys. It's more information you guys looked into before we started using this in New Mexico. I don't know. Yes, no.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. So with all of our, so there's, again, I think I really like to highlight what Ms. Jett pointed out. So there's the assessment, which is a mandated assessment.
But the assessment is what we're also.
Tutor. The tutor is part of this, when they log into the same place, but it's not the same thing. So what we're presenting you tonight is the evidence how students are doing based on the assessment. We're not producing anything for you that's based on interaction students have with the tutor. So the tutor there, that's when it is an online interactive experience that is also mandated by the state of New Mexico. We're mandated to do a minimum of 30 minutes with students every week of time on that platform. But that's most of the things that we're hearing in terms of that is the experience with the tutor. And just like anything that's done in the classroom, whether it's our assessment, which does have tight test security protocols, which obviously you know and you followed as the school test coordinator. But also with if anything that our students are doing, the expectations is still that there's classroom management that people are still watching. So just the same thing as if a student was pulled up their phone and was putting all the answers to the tests on their phone. It's the same thing. So we still monitor our tests. And with the tutor as well as the assessment, like I think I mentioned in the answers, but also publicly that the teacher can listen to any of the recordings at any time. So the teacher is able to go in there. And there's also, just like we have for any of our tests, if the teacher believes that the session wasn't authentic, that there was an interruption, we do a test, it's called testing irregularity process. So that's something we do as well. Other thing I did want to point out, which I'm very happy about, is that areas where principals or teachers have reached out to us, our assessment team, as well as actually the Mirror company themselves, they've actually gone out and spent days with schools. So there's often times where, I'll give her a shout out, Samantha Adino, who's our manager that handles the Mirror assessment. She'll spend entire weeks where she's just out at schools working with teachers. And a lot of times we find it's just getting used to the fact that, just like you said with the WIDA experience, it's very different having students fill out a multiple choice experience or iStation where it's also multiple choice, but they're still touching the screen, very different than talking. So there are strategies. A lot of it has to do with maybe you do half your class as a small group and then you do another activity. So we've made a lot of, I think, progress in terms of dealing with some of the obstacles that people felt with the tutor part, just by going out and being present. But we've also learned a lot of ways of doing it to be less disruptive. But so I hope that answers your question. But if there's any, like I said, if there's any doubt, the teachers are able to listen to the recording.
Does it flag it? Like, does it say, hey, teacher, you might want to listen to this recording because it didn't seem like it was really the kid was putting any effort in?
Yes, and I think was one of the things that was mentioned in the questions, there is the reading error detection that's part of the RED. So there is a detection system in there. It also has, like, that's in our other assessment platform, there are rush flags. So like, and when we come to you with iReady data for progress monitoring, we get, the teacher does get information that says, hey, that was really quick, maybe you should check that. Or, hey, this person checked all A or something. You know, like there are alerts that come to the teacher. So the idea there, even though that's a standardized assessment, I will say one benefit over DIBELS is a lot of times research has found with DIBELS that a lot of times, unfortunately, personal bias plays a role in how certain students are scored. And I do think I would like to say that for our Yazzie Martinez and African American students, it's very important that we have the most unbiased look at how they're doing. And I do think that while there's nothing better than a teacher interacting with the child, this is getting closer to an unbiased perspective as opposed to a person imposing maybe their beliefs on the child and how they're performing.
Thank you.
Board Member Jackson.
Thank you. Okay, so I have two more questions, but this first one, I'm not gonna ask you about Amira. I'm gonna pull us away from Amira, pull us out of this assessment, and kind of get us more to the overall strategies of what is in this document, not just Amira. So I went back and I looked at the document that we used in October of 2025 when you presented the beginning of year report to us. And I noticed that the strategies in both documents are the same. The planned actions, the strategy are the same. So my question is, based on the results that you've seen since then, the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, have there been any adjustments or refinements to your strategies? Or do you believe that the implementation is working as intended? Combining all strategies, you do not have to answer just about Amira.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. As mentioned earlier, when we are on track, we keep strategies consistent so that we can build capacity around who has access to them. So if anything, we have offered more opportunity to more schools in specific support in some of the strategies that we have. So for example, our learning labs that are offered to priority schools, we have been able to expand that to some of our emerging schools or schools that have requested access to that training. So at this point, we continue to build the strength of the strategies because they are showing us positive growth and also expanding it to more of our schools and our staff.
Thank you. So if I can just repeat back what you said. The beginning of the year strategies were like the first step. You've noticed that they were actually working, so you have expanded the ability for other schools to have access to these strategies because they are actually producing an impact.
Members of the board, yes, that is correct, as well as offering the understanding and trainings in some of our other support processes. For example, our 3 FTE training in our 6 promising practices with our TLC, our student success systems resource teachers, as well as our community school coordinators in helping us gain partnership to help us with some of these strategy components and building understanding of how some of our results that we are finding show up in our community as well. So,
thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And so last one, and this kind of dovetails on what you were just talking about. I did notice that throughout the planned actions, there are professional development sessions that are given, and this also kind of goes off of my my tactical question that was asking what trainings have the teachers participated in. That one was very specific about the Amira Learning Suite. So in a more broad sense, how do the various professional development sessions and trainings scaffold together to give the teachers the strongest possible tools for supporting our students? Is there a deliberate strategy to ensure that these efforts are aligned and reinforcing one another rather than occurring in isolation?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, the professional learning is critical to building our strategies. And, to the point that we haven't changed our strategies, it's because we don't really want to identify new strategies as much as we want to remain consistent and build that coherent framework that's addressing directly structured literacy. And we see that through our LETRS training, as well as layered supports, which then is really the expertise of the teacher and how they're using the data to guide their instruction, and hopefully the supplemental tools, as well as the high quality instructional materials that we provide. And then certainly, one thing I believe we've talked about here before is how our departments are really coming together to work to de-silo that approach, so that we're very thoughtfully working with our special education team, our fine arts team, our language and cultural equity team, to work with ELD learners, for example, so that the strategies aren't these people do this, these people do this, these people do this, but rather it's a coherent approach to a strong layer one experience for the student, as well as strategies to intervene. But what we want to make sure is that it is that coherent approach, and it's something we've been working really hard on.
Thank you. Anybody else? I like your look. I just have one question. This is about equity. Now, how are we ensuring that equity across the district supports all students, particularly those in low performing schools, so that resources, teacher support, and instructional tools like Amira, I'm sorry to bring it back up, are effectively meeting their needs and closing the gaps within our, our diverse population, but also our groups?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Currently, we have an internal structure that identifies what schools are in need of specific supports. And we have systems that create conditions, whether it's in the budget or whether it's in staffing, to be able to provide those resources in order to help leverage any of the growth that is needed. So for example, in our priority schools, they have access to many resources that we provide to them from our operational budgets or central office department supports. And then as you go into emerging schools, you see those same supports, or you see schools replicating some of those supports on their own, but we are still providing some of the key components. Something we ground ourselves in are our 6 promising practices, and making sure that those are fully supported and understood. And then as we get into our distinction and acceleration schools, they have the ability to utilize some of those components, as well as take a look with their instructional council of things that they see are working for their specific school community.
Okay, thank you. All right, no more questions. Okay, so we're gonna go on into, so we need to confirm our monitoring report that it is complete. So in assessing whether it is complete, we review 4 elements: the goal, the data, the interpretation, and the evidence and plan. That review includes asking questions such as, does the report show the specific goal being monitored? Does it clearly show data for the previous 3 reporting periods? Does it clearly show the superintendent's understanding of system performance relative to the goal? Does it clearly show supporting documentation that shows evidence of a strategic response if the goal is not on track, or root cause analysis if it is not on track? I believe that all of the criteria for an effective report has been met, but I will open the floor for anyone else who thinks we may be missing one of the elements. Does anyone have evidence that suggests an element is missing?
I mean, I'm just want to abstain from the vote whenever it comes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take that. And so anything else, anybody? So excellent. Let's go ahead and take a vote.
Janelle Astorga,
Yes.
Rebecca Betson,
No. So actually, when you said abstain, you said the other day abstain means that you're actually voting for. Is that correct? No, abstain? Okay, so I abstain. I would like to meet with I'm gonna schedule an appointment with Gabriella, Dr. Blakey.
Heather Benavides,
Yes.
Waikia Bowman,
Abstain.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes. So, okay. So, well, I'm getting a little confused with this whole thing, but I want to thank you for your vote. So then at this point, I believe we are ready to we already entertained a motion. So we'll go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. So we're considering approval of the consent agenda. I ask for a motion and a second for items 7.1 to 7.12.
I move that we approve the consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.12. Board Member Benavides.
And I second it, Board Member Betson.
Okay, Board Member Benavides, motion to approve the consent agenda items, and Board Member Betson second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Janelle Astorga.
Yes.
Rebecca Betson.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Waikia Bowman, Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes. The motion carried. So now we will go on to our action items. So we want to consider approval of the revisions to the 2-year Board of Education Community Engagement Calendar. And our presenter is Janelle Astorga. So
I believe we need a motion and a second before discussion.
thank you for doing that. We'll go ahead and take a motion and a second at this moment.
I move that we consider approval of revisions to the 2-year Board of Education Community Engagement Calendar. This is Board Member Benavides.
I will second. This is Member Jackson.
Okay, Board Member Benavides, motion to approve the engagement calendar revisions, and Board Member Jackson second. You can have the floor, Board Member Astorga.
Thank you, President Tomorito. Thank you, members of the board. There's a few things that we need to discuss tonight, just because we are on a very short timeline for our first event that will come up this month. So I'm going to start by just reviewing the calendar and what we have for the rest of the year, and then what's going to happen next year. And then we'll go into talking about some of the events that are coming up in the next couple of months. So just to start, hopefully you all have this in your diligent or printed out, but for 2026, we are looking at March, and we have 2 regional engagement town halls on the goals and guardrails that will be happening. So we'll talk a little bit more about those, but that's what's coming up first. In April, there will be a listening session. So again, a listening session we decided is on a specific topic where the staff and board will come together to share information to the community and also hear from the community some concerns, questions, or inputs that they might have. In May, we will have our United Game outreach, so partnership with the United Soccer team, and that will be on May 23rd. So that is different than prior years, which it was in June, because this year there will only be 2 games in June for the United Soccer team, and they needed to prioritize Juneteenth and also Pride. So they offered us the May 23rd date, which I I went ahead and accepted on our behalf. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well in our next committee meeting. So if you're interested in joining in that conversation, please join our next community engagement meeting. But that will be the date, so please put it on your calendars, and that will be on goal 3. In June, we have a board member outreach sessions. So that's where you go into a community. So having an organization or a group invite you to attend their meeting, and you'll be listening in. So just to clarify, our outreach is we go into the community, and engagement sessions, we are the ones hosting. So after that, we have a listening session, which is an engagement session. We'll have to choose what topics these are, but please prepare for that in July. In August, we have the State of the District event, and we're hoping to do this at a later time in the day, but we're excited for that. It's been a lot of good things coming from that, great success. In September, we will have another board member outreach. So again, these outreach events are really for us to be out in community. We have a lot of events where we want parents, students, and community to come to us, but we really want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and being in their spaces so that we are aware of what's happening in different points of views and different levels of engagement. In October, we will have our regional engagement town halls on budget. And November, another listening session. And December, our legislative engagement open house. So that's for the rest of the year. We will continue this same calendar for 2027. The only thing that I would add is that we will have, in January, the calendar states board member outreach. I actually want to suggest an edit and move that into February. I know that January is really tough because of legislative session. It's also new year. We're coming in with a lot of things on our plate. So I would like to move that to February, and the outreach portion will also be like regional town halls, so our district town halls, I'm sorry. So in your district, you can have communication, two-way communication with your own constituents. So I would like to frame that a little bit differently than board member outreach. It would be district level town halls, just because we had that before, and it was really great, and community members thought that it was a good opportunity for us to listen, especially at the beginning of the year, what their issues were from the fall. So that's just the one edit that I have there. It's a lot of events. We have an event almost every month or every month. So just simmer on that. But as of right now, are there any questions? Is there any comments about my switch from January to February in 2027?
I have a concern. I know currently right now we're moving at a very fast pace, and I don't know with other board members here how they feel with the current work that we are doing. Yesterday we did have a tribal consultation, and then we had a tour today, and I don't feel well. It's also we have a new board, and many of the board members are working, and I don't know how they feel based on the calendar. Is it too much? Should we look at, or can we make it happen? And if we can make it happen, that's also stating we got to be there. So just so everybody knows that if we can do this, then we're going to say we're going to be there. So I'm just throwing that out.
I appreciate that, President Tomorito. And I do want to say that these events will be managed by the Community Engagement Committee as well as our staff team. So there's no extra work on board members except for showing up, like you had mentioned. I am taking the lead on creating a lot of the presentations to take that off of staff as well. So I know that that's also been done in the past with our prior ad hoc, but really that's my job as chair, which I accepted. So as little as I can put on other board members, I really would just love for you all to show up is the biggest thing. And I have met with staff, and we went over this calendar, which is why it kind of feels rushed right now, because we're preparing for these meetings. So it won't always feel this way. It's only because we started a little bit later with new board members. We wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable going into these events. But we usually do have the first 2 town halls, which I would love for veteran board members and also new board members to pair up just because I think those first engagement town halls on goals and guardrails are a great way for new board members to see what we're presenting to community, how we do our progress monitoring, where we are on our goals, and also get feedback from community. It's just a great space. But I do appreciate your concern, and I want to open it up to other board members if you feel the same way, if you think that we're moving too fast, if you want to change anything in the calendar.
Go ahead, Board Member Jackson.
Say some. So, I think that what the committee prepared here was directly responding to what the community asked us to do. So we, the only thing that has been added are the listening sessions. And the listening sessions, again, are a direct response from all of us hearing that they want to hear more about safety. They want to hear more about issues that are not board issues necessarily. They want to hear more from the administration and the board combined on more topical issues instead of more strategic issues. So I think adding these listening sessions is us being demonstrative to our community that we don't just show up on the dais, ask some questions and leave. We're actually out trying to be more intentional about those two-way conversations. I would be really sad to have to go back to Janet Sayers and tell her that we were going to have fewer community engagement events than more. So I think that's my first point, is that this is being directly responsive. And the second point that Board Member Astorga made about the committee taking on the responsibility of kind of planning the events is absolutely true. But I do want to make sure that it is noted that the full board is expected to go to the events. So I think we all understand that we have lives and there's just maybe some things you can't show up to. But we all ran for these positions. We all asked to be in these positions, and we should honor that commitment that we made to our community to fulfill the obligation that we said we would fulfill. So I'm fine with the way that this has been put together.
Anyone else?
I just want clarification on the board member outreach. Are those organized, or that's like me going to a meeting in my community? Is that?
Yes, so there's 3 different levels of engagement now. So community engagement is the board hosts an event. So like our town halls that are coming up, we are hosting those, so we call those engagement. The outreach is exactly what you said. We're going out into community. We are being invited by our community to attend a meeting, to attend a presentation. And in those, we suggest, we're actually hoping that you would take another board member with you, just because, one, I believe it just provides accountability, right? It's not just you, but you're also bringing a fellow board member so that you both can listen in and bring back to the board what you heard. And also it shows too, for me at least, a lot of solidarity, because what's happening in District 1 might not be happening in District 3 and vice versa. So we're able to understand the variety of experiences throughout the district. So we're hoping that through those board member outreach sessions, 2 members can go to whichever event. And then we have our 3rd level of engagement, which is our new listening sessions. So that's staff and board member, or administration and board members coming together to listen to our communities. So there's now 3 levels. And with that being said, I just want to also share that we will be getting new community engagement packets. I know before we had booklets to explain to our community what community engagement looks like for the board. So those will be coming up to include our listening sessions. Yeah, hopefully that answers your questions.
So we could go to the basketball game. It could be board outreach.
Take another board member with you. But
all right.
Sure, if it's 4, they sit on 4 opposite
separate
ends.
corners.
Yeah.
So may I just address that? Yes, it would count, but you need to make sure you're having 2-way conversations with people there. So not just yelling down to the floor, but actually like engaging.
Only having a conversation with the ref.
That's a great point though. So just this is a way for us to be able to communicate with our constituents because during public forum, we can't speak with them. So they bring us concerns and we sit here and listen and we take it in. But during these events, we're actually able to respond. We actually want during our listening sessions for our administration to have that information. So that's why during listening sessions, there will be specific topics where admin will have actually data and plans set forth to provide to our community. Because we get a lot of questions that we might not know the answers to because that's not our role in day-to-day operations. So we're hoping to fill in that gap with those specific events.
I can let you guys know because I am going to those games. How we can create that if I do attend. No, I am going to attend. So I'll let you know how I do the interaction with
maybe it's the pep talk with the team beforehand.
I do go to the coaches and introduce myself, and then they introduce me to the team. So I make sure I do take the time to meet the coaches and say hello and that I'm here to enjoy your game and thank all the girls and the boys. But yes. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Astorga. I think that this is a fantastic calendar. It's well thought out and it's very organized. And as somebody who doesn't have a lot of free time, I really appreciate it all being there. And I very much appreciate the work being done ahead of time. So we just have to show up. So, but anyway, we can help, we will. So I wanted to ask specifically about the presentations, and I want to thank you for your offer to create them. So content, I assume, is going to be goals and guardrails and maybe a question and answer session, but will the specific board members have the opportunity to modify based on our districts and the needs of our districts, which are going to be very different compared to the others?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we'll actually be looking at what the draft agenda will be for the town halls in our next little segment. But the goal is to have just one presentation that you can modify when you do your district town halls. So yes.
Cool. And then I just want to say that the listening sessions with staff and board members is amazing. I love that. I don't know who thought of that, but kudos. That's fantastic.
To Daniel.
Awesome.
Great. I have just one clarifying question for board members before we move on from this section. Is everyone okay with moving that January 2027 board member outreach to February and instead calling it district level town halls? I'm seeing that's not even great. Great, so I'm going to move on from this, and just for the notes, Christy, we're moving January 2027 to February and calling those district level town halls, and the rest can stay the same. So our next part that I want to jump in is about the March town halls. So these town halls are specifically to update our community around the goals and guardrails. We have one day already set, which is March 25th. And that will be here in the boardroom. And that is so that we can live stream it on our YouTube channel. The reason it's here and not at Bonifacio, where we usually do our events, is because the date was already taken. So that's why we want to move on a little bit quickly so we can make sure to have great space and also potential to live stream at least one of the events when it comes to our goals and guardrails town halls and also our budget town halls. So the second event, I was hoping that we can do at Tres Volcanes Community Collaborative School, which they have already agreed to. And we have the dates either March 23rd or 24th, a Monday or a Tuesday. So I wanted to ask board members if Monday, March 23rd or Tuesday, March 24th works better for you all for our second, well, which technically would be our first, Goals and Guardrails Town Hall.
23rd. Sorry.
23rd. So I'm hearing a Monday works better.
Sorry, what time would that be?
We can discuss that. What time do we feel works better? We've done them at 6 o'clock, I believe, in the past to accommodate for traffic and folks getting out of work.
Good. 6 is good.
Monday the 23rd sounds like a good day for most of us. Yes.
23rd is Monday and then 25th is on a Wednesday.
So that's in a few weeks. So we're talking about this month.
6 or 7.
6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock.
So I'm hearing March 23rd, Monday, 6 o'clock is our date for that first town hall at Tres Volcanes. And then March 25th will be our second Goals and Guardrails town hall here in the boardroom, also 6 o'clock. So with those two dates, can we commit to showing up to either one of those?
Oh, we only have to come to one or both?
I'm hoping you come to both, but I would love a commitment to at least come to one, so we have enough folks at either event, at both events.
I will commit to coming to one for sure.
And can you tell me a date?
You wanna-
I want
you
a
wanna pin me
commitment.
down, huh? The 23rd.
Perfect.
23rd.
Okay, so member Betson, member Bowman, for March 23rd. The only reason I'm doing this is because we have certain roles for board members during our run of show, which is like handing out mics if there's guests needing questions. There's also a presentation. So I'll go through that real quick. There's a welcome and introductions, which board members who are attending those sessions will be out in community mingling or out in this boardroom. Then we'll have a student outcomes focused governance overview. So you will get provided the presentation as well as a script that you will be able to read. So it's not coming off at the top of your head. And then we'll talk a little bit about the difference between board work versus superintendent work and progress to our goals. So what does that progress look like for these 4 goals that we have? So all of that will be in the presentation and you will have a script, but that will be your role for that night. So I should have said that before you committed. I apologize. But is that okay with member Betson?
Yeah.
Member Fullman?
We'll be there for both. Same.
Perfect. Any questions that you have on that? Member Bowman?
It's Tres Volcanos and how many hours?
It's 2, I believe. Is it, or is it 1?
And you'll
sorry,
send
I
all of this
yeah.
information?
Yes.
So, okay, yeah, so.
Yeah, you will not go in blind. So you'll have this information beforehand. I just want to clarify, what have we done in the past, Christy? 1 or 2 hours?
Typically, we've done an hour and a half.
Okay,
I'd say an
so
hour and a
right in the
half.
middle, hour and a half. Awesome. Any other questions just on that run of show? No. Okay, great. So we have 2 board members, March 23rd. We have 2 board members, March 25th. Hopefully everybody can attend both events, but at least so we know who the presenters are, that's really great. I appreciate that. Let's see, what is next? Yeah, so we will send this all in at a glance so that you're prepared as well. I'm working on finalizing the presentation. What I'm doing is using last year's presentation and kind of just updating it with new roles, new goals, new goal progress. So it looks like those are all the questions that I had for March town halls. So we're gonna cut that segment. Next to our next segment that we have, community engagement, is April listening session. So again, April listening session is administration and board members coming together to speak on a specific topic to community and get feedback, questions, and also just create reassurance. So I have been hearing a lot of conversations, not only in community, but also on the dais about safety. So I would like to suggest that our first topic in April for our listening session would be on safety. However, there's a lot that encompasses safety. Is it bullying? Is it, physical safety at schools? Because we've seen some students come and tell us that the HVAC isn't working or things like that. What does safety look like to us so that we can get a specific topic and make the job of the administration a little bit easier to see what information they need to bring into these listening sessions. So first question is, how do you feel about the topic of safety? I'm seeing nods, great. And then next question is, can we just get some feedback on what part of safety do you all think we should focus on? Immigration is another one that came up. So I had 3: immigration, bullying, and just like classroom environment.
Do we have to focus on just one, or can we do, I mean, because safety is all encompassing. And I think that so it's a listening session, so they're going to be bringing their concerns to us. And so it's going to be all over the place. And, from bullying to weapons on campus to things that we might not think are safety, but like you said, comfort, HVAC systems. So I'm not sure that we should.
The only reason we should specify at least a little bit is because administration needs to bring a presentation to have answers. So if we're telling community this presentation is on safety for bullying, for example, then at least the administration can come prepared saying, here is our plan, here's information, so that during the listening session, if we do get questions, we're not just saying, we hear you, but we're actually providing information. And Superintendent Blakey, did you? have-
Yes, Chair Astorga, I just have a question about the listening session, and I don't know if it's maybe we can talk about it at the next community engagement committee. I think I'm confused on the format of it. So I thought that the format was there's a topic and then the administration is presenting it like here for any community members, including board members who want to hear about it. But then I'm hearing also that it's people coming and giving questions to the board. So I just feel like.
No, you are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the style, but I'm saying that there will be questions after your presentation. So So in order to evade just coming in with random questions, we'll provide a topic so that community is aware what questions to bring because you have a presentation. So hopefully that's more clear.
Yes, thank you.
And then I also think because it is listening that whether it's just random on the topic, we put the topic out there, but it's also just to state that your questions, despite the topic, will still be, heard and addressed. Yeah.
Or heard at least, but
Heard, yeah.
more information is needed. But
Yeah.
And so what role will the board members play in this?
That's what they'll discuss at the.
Okay.
Member Jackson, I see you.
So I was gonna answer your first question and then maybe answer the second question to my understanding. So the first question was like topical. And so I think maybe the way I'm contemplating this is what is the hardest question for the administration to answer? What is the most comprehensive question that they might have to answer on safety? And so when I kind of like think about what you have brought up, I think what I hear a lot about is the physical, the structural safety of the schools. That might be a more in-depth conversation than like a bullying conversation that potentially could be answered with the directive of here's our policy. It's like I don't want to say easier, but it can be accessible. It's a more accessible answer. So when I think about how we're structuring a listening session, I want to think of what is the most challenging question to answer that you can't just answer in, a 4-minute conversation, that it requires more of a presentation. So gosh, I don't know what's going on with my voice. I'm sorry. So my suggestion would be safety focused more on, like, I'm looking at you, Dr. Gonzalez, like this is in your area, to start there, but then maybe to allow the administration to say, look, we know we're going to get questions on bullying. We're also going to get questions on immigration, and even maybe immigration is actually brought into the physicality of the buildings. So that's kind of my suggestion on that.
And I think bullying's more broad, that there's so much underlying it that I think you can sort of lead to that content of, it's just a covering, but it has so many other parts to it. Yeah.
So I'm hearing keep just safety broad and have administration prepare what they believe constituents are going to be asking about. I'm seeing nods. Is that okay with you?
Yes, we can.
Member Benavides, I see. Did you have?
I just wanted to reiterate my question. What role does the board play once we're actually in the event? No, I just want to make sure that if we are going to engage in the conversations and assist administration, that we are prepared. And if we are just there to listen, that we're there to listen. I think it needs to be very clear.
Let me bring that up because we're going to be talking about this in March 17th community engagement meeting, but just to give some feedback, I have a draft agenda for a listening session. So board members will be responsible for introductions, just mingling before the meeting, sorry. We'll also do an icebreaker. So similar to having a presentation for the town halls, we'll have a presentation here. So doing an icebreaker with the people who show up. We'll do a presentation of the why we're having these sessions. So community members really wanted a space to talk about specific issues. So that is our why. And then we'll pass it on to staff and they are the what. So what is happening at this engagement? So those are really the only things that we'll be doing. I do have some activities in here for group discussions, and I'm hoping that board members who attend will be at tables, kind of communicating with the folks who show up and also doing report back. So what did you hear as a board member, so that community members know that as a board member, you actually listened to what they were saying during the group sessions. And that's just a draft. So send me your ideas if you have any. But I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. So we have chosen a topic, which is safety, and administration will help us define what that looks like in their presentation. The next is a date. So we have 3 dates available in April. We have Monday, April 27th, Wednesday, April 29th, or Thursday, April 30th. Do either of those work better for any of you?
Chair Astorga, I believe that the administration has conflicts with that week. If
Okay.
it's on safety.
Okay.
I'm looking at Dr. Gonzalez because I think he's checking for sure, but I believe that.
The dates again? The April.
The week of April 27th. So 27th, 29th, or the 30th.
Okay.
I was suggesting April 25th, which is a Saturday, because I believe we'll get better involvements. But Verna Fasio is not available.
And just would like to get with staff to make sure that we can get the right people there. And I think that week has a conflict with who would be presenting on safety.
I'm just going to look at Chrissy because I believe that we needed to just get a date down because there's a lot of stuff happening in April. Is that?
It's up to the pleasure of the board, but if the board is willing for me to work with administration to set a date that works for administration and tech staff, we can do that.
Perfect. Does that work for everybody? Awesome. I will just state that I will be gone. I'll be out of town April 15th through the 20th. So this can happen without me. Please, if there's a conflict, please go ahead and do that. Just so everybody's aware that I will be out those days. Great. So just clarifying that, we'll have board services staff and administration work on a date, and they will let us know at the next community engagement meeting. Awesome. Well, and that concludes everything for me. So thank you so much for indulging.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. I really appreciate that.
Sorry, before we move on, I think we do have a motion on the table, but the motion needs to be amended.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was gonna say. We're gonna need to amend it. Let me. Yeah,
So just
you emotioned.
amend the calendar.
Okay, so hold on. Sorry, y'all. Forgot that it was me. So I move that we're considering approval of the revisions, but what's the amendment to the motion? I'm sorry.
So the motion was to approve the revisions to the 2-year Board of Education Community Engagement Calendar, but it was presented with an edit.
Right.
So
Edits to,
as
It's to the revision.
right,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so I'm amending my motion that we consider approval of revisions to the 2-year Board of Education Community Engagement Calendar with the revisions as stated by Chair Astorga. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Board Member Jackson, do you support that?
I second, yes.
Okay, great. We'll call for the vote.
Danella Astorga,
Yes.
Rebecca Betson.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Mauricio Bowman.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Roberto Morito.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna move to 8.2. We're gonna consider approval of a nomination for the new School Board Association 2026 Excellent and Student Award Achievement Award. Dr. Albright. Or
Is it okay if I present from here, board members?
Mhm.
So each year, the board has the opportunity from the New Mexico School Boards Association to honor someone in the district who has supported excellence in student achievement. That person needs to be an adult. Students are part of a scholarship group that is coming up actually very soon for your discussion. But today, you have the opportunity to choose up to 7 nominees. We have permission to buy extra plaques. So each of you was asked to bring a nominee to the table tonight. If the board so chooses, you can choose to accept all of the nominees brought to the table up to 7. And with that, I stand for your conversation and questions.
Well, that makes sense.
Anybody?
Oh, I haven't, yeah, I haven't on me, sorry.
I have like 4, so I'm hoping that they're said down the line. So please, you start. Member Jackson.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so when I was looking at it, when I was looking at it, I was trying to determine largest impact. So I kind of went in reverse. Instead of looking at district level, I went who maybe was having an impact across the entire district. And so the first one I landed on is Jennifer Hart with the Crisis Resource Counselor with the APS Counseling Department. My note on this was that with her working in the crisis department, she can impact across the entire district. Not only those who are affected directly, but she is affecting entire communities of schools. So she is my nominee.
Board President Tomorito, I apologize. I did it again. We need a motion and a second to continue this conversation.
Okay. All right, I need a motion and a second for this agenda item.
I move we approve the nomination of the New Mexico School Boards Association 2026 Excellence in Student Achievement Award. This is Member Jackson.
I will second Member Eslica.
Thank you. That gets the agenda item off the agenda and onto the table for discussion.
Okay. Well, Board Member Astorga, did you?
So that was one of mine. Thank you for putting that name on the table. Can you go down the other way?
You don't know. Okay. There's in there, Board Member Benavides.
Well, this is a difficult thing to do because each person on this list plays such a vital role in the district overall, and it feels sort of wrong to choose one over another. So it's great that the list is so long, but since we only have 7, it would be nice if we only had 7 so everyone could go. But I'm looking at I listened to what Board Member Jackson said about scope, and I think that Jenna Bloodworth, who's the principal at Marie Hughes Elementary in District 2, who was also the principal at McKinley Middle School in what is that? How's that breaking down there? So
she was
yes,
she was the principal at Marie Hughes, and now she's the principal at McKinley. Yeah. Okay, and so that spans 2 districts, so District 2 and District 4, and I think that that's great that this principal, who is being given kudos by this wonderful paragraph, and whoever nominated her for all of her outstanding leadership capabilities, has been able to provide that leadership in 2 schools. So that is the person that I would choose.
Board Member Benson.
I'm with Board Member Benavides in that it's just so hard to choose. I know Chelsea Darrell, librarian at Double Eagle, so I would probably go with her.
Okay.
Can I take 3 spots since there are 2 other board members that need nominees and then mine? That would be, thank you. So the first one is Santana Torres, who is a nurse and uses her ER experience to not only help with day-to-day operations, but also has saved lives from time to time. I think that is just really huge. And yeah, she not only provides comfort to students, but also to staff. So I really resonated with this one as well, because it talks about, you know, students and staff having panic attacks. And I was a student that suffered from panic attacks in high school. So having that person that, you know, she knows how to handle this it's rare and also super important. So that was one of my people. So thank you for the work that you do. Jennifer Hart was another one. So thanks for shouting that one out. My second one is George Melini, a bus driver who ensured that medical supplies that were left on the bus were given to the correct student, and also making sure that not only was it, here's your stuff, but let's have a conversation of reassurance that I understand what you're going through and how to take care of your needs. So that empathy was really, really great. And I feel like that should be stated. And then my last nomination is Enrique Ochoa, who's athletic trainer who saved in another employee's life on campus. I think those are just really great scenarios and unfortunate scenarios, but really great outcomes. So those are my nominations.
Thank you. I'm gonna go with Jenna, Butler, to the District 2, only because she is in my district and because I know her and I know the work she's done. So I'm very appreciative that she is nominated. She is a hard worker. Thank you.
So, board members, I believe we have 6 people nominated so far. So let me read who I have, and you guys
Okay.
can let me know who I'm missing. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Heather, go
I
ahead.
have Chelsea Darrell. I have Enrique Ochoa, George Melini, Jenna Bloodworth, Jennifer Hart, and Santana Torres. I think that's 6. Is that right?
Do you have another one, Courtney?
No, Janelle and I were aligned. I
Okay.
also chose George Melini was my second, yeah.
Then Heather, go ahead, Heather.
Okay, well, I will just state this, and then if you want to state your person, maybe we can duke it out. But I want to highlight this person because they play an integral role that in education or in a school district is not often highlighted. But all of us who work know that this person is very important to us, and that's Michelle Candelaria, the payroll manager for APS Finance. Nothing works if people don't get paid. So thank you, Michelle Candelaria, for your service to the district.
I think he's a good one. That's a good one.
I'll just shout out my next person. It was Gladys Flores Delgado, who was a teacher at George I. Sanchez. I know her incredible work. She takes students from the classroom into real world experiences. And I see her at the legislative session, you know, with students. So shout out to her. But I also believe that that's a super important person. Payroll is important.
And often overlooked.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we done, Dr. Albright? Do you have anything else?
Well, now we have 8.
Mine was just a shout out. Well,
Oh,
yeah.
It's just a shout out, the last one.
Okay.
So we got,
So the 7 then are Chelsea Darrell, Enrique Ochoa, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, I apologize. George Melini, Jenna Bloodworth, Jennifer Hart, Michelle Candelaria, and Santana Torres.
did you do Jenna? You
I
said Jenna?
did.
Okay. I think that sounds,
okay.
that sounds right.
All right. So, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Janelle Astorga,
Yes.
Rebecca Betson.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Ronaldo Morito.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the motion carries. All right. And now we will go to our discussion item 9.1. And this is on the fiscal year 2027 budget presentation. Presenters are Renee Apodaca, Chief Financial Officer, David Riel, Executive Director of Budget and Strategic Planning, and Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, Department Superintendent of Operations. You have the floor. Or It's discussion, yes.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Good evening. Tonight, we're presenting to you the first presentation of the fiscal year 2027 budget. I am joined by David B. Hill, the Executive Director of and Strategic Planning, and Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent of Operations. To begin our discussion, we have a short video regarding the 3 APS programs we will be discussing this evening: APS Food and Nutrition, APS Transportation, and Capital Funds.
The heart of every school beats in the kitchen, where education, nutrition, and customer service unite to enhance and inspire our future leaders, our children. Good nutrition is key to a healthy life. Students who are well nourished have increased attendance, better grades and concentration, and perform at higher standards. Every day, APS Food and Nutrition Services serves over 17,000 breakfasts, 30,000 lunches, and 4,400 after-school snacks to students.
In 2015, APS, through the generosity of our taxpayers, purchased a 100,000 square foot warehouse for $2.2 million and designed and refurbished it into a state-of-the-art food processing facility, warehouse, and distribution center for $14 million.
Over 40,000 students are transported to and from school and for educational activities on 450 buses every day in the Albuquerque Public Schools School District. This makes APS the largest mass transit operator in the state of New Mexico.
Dr. J. Patrick Garcia Transportation Road Northeast in Albuquerque. The facility is a 33,423 square foot remodel and purchased by APS in 2015 for $11.7 million. The facility is the main student transportation hub for the APS district. The remodel project included the following: open and private offices and ancillary training spaces for transportation personnel, ADA restrooms, and elevator upgrades. The Ruben Hendrickson Transportation Center is located at 7301 Los Focales Road, Northwest in Albuquerque. The construction budget for this facility was $19,398,104.
The district has 368 projects in process at various levels from design through construction, with an estimated construction market value of over $566 million. The projects are funded by taxpayer-approved school bonds and mill levies.
Since the adoption of the Capital Master Plan in 1990, APS voters have approved over $4.58 billion. Since 1990, local funding, property taxes, has represented 93.5% of total capital expenditures. Since 1990, state and federal funding have represented 6.5% of total capital expenditures. The Albuquerque Public Schools District has a total of $7.2 billion assessed capital infrastructure needs identified. Construction projects are on course despite construction inflation, thanks to district taxpayers who helped offset inflation in the 2025 school bond election. The payoffs from long-term capital investments can be measured in many ways. Fortunately, the district's long-term capital investments yielded life, health, and safety resources for the whole community. The investment payoff continues.
Thank you. At APS, our budget is not just a financial document.
It is a reflection of our goals. As outlined in our APS commitment, we are building a coherent through line of skills, habits, and mindsets from pre-K to high school. Our financial plan must support the profile of a graduate and ensure alignment to the Board of Education goals and guardrails. Our budget is grounded in the 4 board goals: early literacy, math proficiency, post-secondary readiness, skills, habits, and mindsets. Our budget decision supports at least one and often multiple of these goals. In accordance with New Mexico statutes, APS must submit a balanced budget to the Public Education Department for the upcoming fiscal year. Our process begins with a budget calendar and includes activities such as stakeholder engagement, revenue projections, and legislative monitoring. Mr. Behill will walk you through the next couple of slides. Mr. Behill.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Blakey. I'm going to provide a high-level overview of how the state equalization formula provides for approximately $1 billion in resources for Albuquerque Public Schools operations. The SEG formula essentially provides for equitable funding per student, regardless of the geographical location of the student. The legislative intent supports the premise that the funding follows the student. So this is how it basically works. Detailed enrollment data, such as grade level, special education, and other program level data, is verified by the district and collected on a statewide basis by the New Mexico Public Education Department 3 times a year. A vast majority of the formula elements use prior year's average of the 80th and 120th day enrollment collections. These individual grade level and program elements are assigned program factors and are used to generate program units in the formula. The PED uses the total number of these statewide program units and divides that into the total legislative appropriation for public school and state equalization guarantee. The result of that calculation is the unit value. So we here at APS, I forgot where I work. We here at APS use that unit value to forecast what our district's share of the SEG will be based on the number of program units our own district-wide enrollment generates. This is the forecasted revenue that gives us an estimate of what money is available for our operations for the ensuing school year. But this is only half the picture, right? We are required to submit a balanced budget to the PED. So all of the operational expenses estimated for the ensuing year cannot exceed the revenue that is projected for this process. Finally, at the end, PED calculates our official SEG distribution and sends it to us in the spring, usually around mid-March to early April. From that official notice, we can build a complete and comprehensive balanced budget for the upcoming school year. So moving on to the next slide here, public school support dollars are discussed amongst legislators and school administrators as being above the line, middle of the line, and below the line. So these terms allow for easy identification of what the source of the funding is. Above the line funding is the SEG, okay, which I discussed on the previous slide. Middle of the line funding includes restricted funding sources like transportation and standards-based assessment. Restricted meaning that they can only be used for specific legislative directed uses. Finally, below the line funding items include recurring requested programs, which are administered as grants by the PED. These include programs like pre-K and early literacy and reading support, excuse me. The next slide kind of shows a trend of our enrollment over the last 10 years. And as you can see, APS has seen a significant decline in enrollment, which coincidentally aligns with the statewide trends across many other New Mexico school districts. This trend is likely to continue. The next slide just shows you a representation of the many different funding sources that make up APS's district operating budget. Operational is where the SEG resides, and it's that biggest circle there, and is by far the largest individual funding source, making up upwards of $1 billion for our operating budget. As you can see, there are several other moving pieces to the operating budget. So moving on to the next slide, as you can see, the operational budget, again, is the largest slice of the pie and accounts for a vast majority of the funding for our teachers, administrators, and other support staff. We have a very successful capital outlay program that supports the construction, maintenance, and upkeep of our facilities. Our community continues to support the general obligation bond program and property tax mill levies. Other smaller federal and state and local grants supplement our programs and help us to align to our strategic goals and guardrails. So I'll close these slides by stating that the FY27 budget work is happening right now as we speak, and we are working closely with the PED to get the numbers we need in order to bring you a more comprehensive budget proposal over the next 2 months. With that, I'll hand it back to Ms. Apodaca.
Thank you. The next slide talks about some of the outreach that we did. So we started with a budget survey. A budget survey was issued in October 2025, and we received approximately 5,300 responses. On the slide, you can see a summary of those results. And we did get input from parents and guardians, employees and students and community members. Next slide. We also had community input from the board that participated, similar to what the previous item was, where we had listening tours. We did have one on the east side and on the west side. And again, on your presentation, you will find the results from these listening tours. I know that Madam President did participate in those. Next slide. Additionally, we went to hear from students. So Board Member Jackson participated in Be a Leader student presentation in October 2025. So it was great to get students talking about budget decisions, and students emphasized that safe, well-maintained schools and engaging environments drive attendance and success. Additionally, we're always keeping an eye on the legislative updates and the bills that are up at the legislative session, because those do impact our budget. So this slide outlines some of the legislative bills that finance was tracking that, like I said, is related to budget, and each of them does have an impact to our APS budget. The next slide does outline the different budget programs that we'll be discussing and the dates of these discussions. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Gonzalez for the program presentations. So Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Ms. Apodaca. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, good evening. I'm pleased to be able to share with you 3 budgets tonight, the intent of the budget and its scope, transportation, food and nutrition services, and capital projects. I am joined this evening by 3 exceptional executive directors. In transportation, Mr. Royce Binns; in food and nutrition services, Marie Johnson; and in capital projects, Gazito Wajinji. We will go through these budgets one by one. At the conclusion of the summary of each budget presentation, we will pause and stand for your questions, and then move on to the next one, and finally to the third. So with that said, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, We are pleased to begin with APS transportation. And as we know, transportation is a lot more than buses. It is providing access to education. Our bus drivers are the first APS face that our students see every single day. Likewise, they are the last APS face that our students see at the end of every school day. This is an awesome responsibility and an enabling condition that we take very, very seriously. The revenue, as you can see in the APS transportation budget, is projected at $26.5 million, primarily from state funding, and expenditures are driven by salaries and benefits, fuel, maintenance, and fleet costs. We know that the budget is inherently reflected by laws, regulations, and policies that govern our operations. These slides outline the specific mandates impacting APS transportation. We know that we are currently bound by current statutory reimbursement models that are very traditional, shall I say. In other words, currently under New Mexico State statute and reimbursement, we have a traditional model where students are transported from their neighborhood to their neighborhood school. That does not take into account perhaps family situations that are not traditional. For example, transportation to our magnet schools, or transportation from a super stop in an area of town that would take certain students from one area of town to another school in another area of town. We recognize that the current reimbursement model is in need of review, and we are also happy that today we were joined by members of the legislature at our infrastructure tour that were able to hear more about this and, shall I say, eager to assist us in perhaps working with the state on this modernization of the reimbursement model for our transportation statewide. So we look forward to this as we move forward. As discussed earlier, the APS budget is just not a financial document. It is a reflection of our goals, our guardrails, and our strategic plan. This slide outlines some of the strategic alignment. As I mentioned, APS transportation is one of the hallmark enabling conditions that makes learning possible, that really facilitates our ability to meet our goals. By providing reliable access to specialized programs in daily routines, APS transportation serves as a critical tool for equity and a primary defense against chronic absenteeism. Through nearly 5 million annual miles of service, our transit system protects instructional time, and it ensures neighborhood location or physical disability never limits a student's opportunity to have strong academic opportunities. The budget is a tool for managing a program by identifying where resources are allocated, planning for the resources, and monitoring what was planned and actual expenditures. This slide outlines this for APS transportation and includes challenges the department faces related to funding and expenditures. For each one of these three presentations, we have included, I think, a powerful logic model. This logic model really connects the dots, if you will, in terms of the inputs for each department, leading to the outputs, which all end at the outcome and connection to the goals that the board has set forth for us to meet. I'd like to, at this time, invite Mr. Binns to the table so that he can assist me in answering any questions that the board may have in relationship to the transportation budget. We stand for your questions, Madam President.
Okay, Board Member Benavides.
Thank you, President Tom Morito, and thank you all for this very interesting presentation and specifically for APS transportation. And so, Dr. Gonzalez, what you said earlier about the bus driver being the first person that the student sees and the last person they see from APS during the day really resonated with me because I had met my kindergarten teacher years ago before going to school. Her name was Miss Jean, and I can't tell you how disappointed I was when the bus driver pulled up and she opened the door and it wasn't Miss Jean. I thought she'd be taking me to school as well and dropping me off at home. But Miss Green, who was my bus driver, was fantastic as well. But so that really touched my heart. But my question is pretty simple. What is the super stop?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, a super stop is basically a hub stop, if you will, in a certain part of town, designated to take students from that area to another location. To give you an example, we know that we have our college and career high school on the CNM campus. Under the current reimbursement model, we are not able to transport students to that campus because we're not reimbursed for it, given the magnet school designation of that school. As we work to modernize this reimbursement process, we hope that we will be able to create super stops in the South Valley, in the northwest side of town, and the northeast side of town, you name it, that would take students from those areas to that school as an opportunity to have equitable access to that magnet school learning opportunity. Right now, we're not able to do that. We are anxious to be able to modernize the reimbursement formula to be able to do more work along those lines.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Yes, Board Member Storga.
I just wanted to clarify that and connect it to one of my schools, just it's better for my brain. So Polk is now going to be a magnet school, and we're hoping that students come to that school to increase enrollment, but we're not going to be getting a super stop in order to take students to that school. Just for
Yes, Madam Chair, Member Astorga, members of the board, correct. So right now, the way that the funding formula works for transportation, we are not funded for magnet schools in that way. We are funded for neighborhood schools. And that was one of the things that we talked about that Dr. Gonzalez was alluding to this morning with the infrastructure tour is perhaps getting some flexibility in the transportation funding. We could, if we had the resources of drivers and buses to provide that, we would have to supplement transportation with operational money.
So follow up. We are able to pick up students from neighborhood schools, like an elementary school to middle schools. So if a student from Harrison Middle School is picked up, I'm sorry, if a student who lives near Harrison Middle School, can they be picked up to go to Polk Magnet School because it's a neighborhood school? It doesn't count that way.
Go ahead, Mr. Binns.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, each school is kind of set up at their own district. And so if somebody lives in that district, but then they want to go to another school, like a transfer student, the transportation they have to provide that themselves because there's no funding source for that. Even if we did have the driver and bus available, it wouldn't be that way. And just to backtrack on the super stops, we do that a lot with charter schools too. And it's all about time and distance. And so charter schools are different than the district itself. They have no boundaries. And so when we supply buses to that, we're crossing over multiple districts. And it's legally for them, but we are on a whole separate rules by under APS on that.
Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't know that we work as like mini districts for transportation. So that's more clarifying for me. So thank you.
Okay. Board Member Jackson.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for hosting the infrastructure tour today. Really appreciate you doing that. And I was glad to see that there were legislators there who could kind of hear our story and understand the need for transportation or a readjustment of that funding formula. Also, I just wanted to state kudos to you all for moving on that, for understanding that this is a need, because when we look at our goals and our guardrails, guardrail 2 is equitable access to resources. And so often we hear of, I mean, I toured the Valley Magnet School where it had that super cool architecture. And I was thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if some kids from the Northeast Heights could come down here, but they can only do it if mom's willing to drive. So I really appreciate that you guys are recognizing that, and I support those efforts. And, however we can help, I think that that's really going to open up the equity issue and access issue for our students. Okay. As far as this presentation is concerned, when I look at the budget presentation, I kind of focused on 3 questions. The first question was, are the goals clearly the framework around which the budget has been crafted? I do believe for this transportation issue, and I'll just forewarning, I do think you did that for the other 2, because these issues affect the whole district. I do think that you can make a reasonable assumption that they do affect the goals. So I would give you a yes on that. The next question that I asked to myself was, is there evidence that the guardrails are being honored? I do think that you make a nod to it, but I think until we as board members become a little bit more used to what the goals and the guardrails are, I would request that they are maybe specifically called out within the documents. I can read through and I can find where, oh, that's a guardrail 1, oh, that's a guardrail 2. But I think maybe for our training, it would also be helpful if those were specifically just called out in the documents. So, and then my third question is there strategic clarity? So here's where my questions are going to come to you. Can you tell me where new strategies have been added, if any new strategies have been added as far as transportation?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, I think the first thing, as fundamental as it might sound, is working on the operational side of the house, on the side that are enabling conditions to support the work of academics, the goals. The first thing we need to do is be authentic listeners that are willing to adjust on our side and really take the goals into account and really think outside the box in innovative ways to see how we can be partners in really working to meet the goals. The example that I will give you, 2 examples that I will give you along the lines of transportation is really looking at the funding formula and thinking outside the box and being bold to see how we can open up the funding formula to be diverse and innovative in how we get kids to school in their neighborhood school, or should they want another opportunity, likewise, being able to do that. The second thing that we're looking to do through the work of the academies of Albuquerque, for example, is have early conversations to understand what that truly means, to be able to begin forecasting what this will look like at the high school level as an example, to really respond as a programmatic enabling condition to facilitate what that would look like in terms of the array of academies and pathways, and being able to respond to student need and student request to participate in those programs.
So it sounds like there's a potential, like when we look at this budget, like nothing has been added yet, but probably because there is a limitation based on the funding formula as it stands right now.
That's correct.
Okay. And so then my last question, sorry, were you leaning?
Right, just for, yes, board president, members of the board, just for clarification, the budgets that you are seeing tonight do not have operational funds. So these are, all 3 of them are budgets that are coming from different funding sources. They're not the general operational funds.
then that clarifies what my next question was going to be, and I'm done. Thank you.
Board members.
Just
Sorta.
really quickly, I apologize. I have to head out, but Sal, I'm going to join the Zoom because I want to continue listening in presentations. But I don't want to just leave. So I appreciate it, but I'll be joining through Zoom. So thank you all.
Board Member Benson. Board Member Benson.
So, in relation to Dr. Blakey's comment about this is not operational. And obviously, you can imagine I've gotten tons of phone calls and emails this week about operational cuts in schools and whatnot. And so I'm wanting to know that we can let the public know, when are the presentations for those budgets going to be? And is it going to be before schools have to submit their budgets to you guys?
President, members of the board, the schools submitted their budgets today. But the timeline for going over all of it, I believe that, Chief Apodaca could.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, in your presentation, we have a slide where it has the different programs. So you'll see that federal and state programs and operational are going to be presented April 15th. And the reason that it is a little bit later is because we haven't gotten our unit value from the New Mexico Public Education Department. So there's two parts to the budget. There's the revenue and then there's the expenditures. So currently we are working on the expenditures, which is exactly what you're talking about, where we get the budgets from the schools and from the departments. But most importantly is we have to make sure that we get the revenue appropriated to us to be able to cover those. So you will be hearing that presentation on April 15th.
Okay. I did have a question, but it is more about, I guess, the unit value, really. And is that an appropriate question for right now?
Well, we don't have the unit value yet, so I would put any other questions that aren't related to the items that are on the agenda in an RFI.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Board Member Bowman?
No, but I do have two hungry teenagers at home and a college student, so I also have to head out. But I'm going to study these slides. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your hard work on this. Thank you.
I have one question. But I just need to know, maybe this is more for the special education presentation, March 18th. It's about the transportation budget. Is dedicated specifically to special education, and how has that changed over time?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, it continues to, it's a nationwide transportation issue as far as it is increasing every year as the budgets decrease. And so majority of the budget, probably about 55% of the transportation budget, goes to transporting special needs students.
Oh, wow.
And I was just talking to another district out in Texas. It was costing them, they were using outsourcing a service that they do door-to-door service in cars, kind of like one of the services that we kind of use. Is costing them $18,666 per student to transport them a year, just in special needs.
Can you give me a breakdown of the types of transportation?
Currently right now if they're mobile and functioning, they will be transported on a regular school bus. If we do have wheelchair buses, if they're wheelchair bound, and we have mid-sized buses and kind of what they call the Class A or Twinkie buses for really hard areas to get into. We're trying to get legislation changed to be able to use SUVs, but currently right now we can only use SUVs for federal programs like McKinney-Vento and homeless. So we use the SUVs on that, but it would be greatly a need to be able to use the SUVs to pick up special needs students, because a lot of the programs are really consolidated into certain areas of the city. And so transporting from one end down to the other is very expensive by school bus. So SUV makes it a lot more appealing to be able to do that. But currently right now we have 26 SUVs in our fleet, but they're packed with homeless and the McKinney-Vento students. So, we continue to work with the legislatures because they really built the whole SUV program. They really tightened it down, but we really need to get them to open it up because things have changed and every dollar counts anymore. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
I have a question real quick. I'm sorry. Can y'all hear me?
I was like, where's that noise coming from?
Sorry, just before we end with transportation, I was wondering if transportation funds are similar to like school funds. Like, is it per student or is it per school?
It's multi-level, it's per student, per mile, and the size of our fleet. And it's all a calculation out of there. And a lot of times APS is at a disadvantage because we're a large district. So we're funded lower than the rural communities. And that's where Dr. Gonzalez was bringing up about the funding formula, because it's really outdated. And when one of the transportation directors left back a few years back, it had been so manipulated because of relationships with other districts. They
had hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. We were
so they've tried to realign it, but last year we were actually funded correctly because they took the penalty for being a larger district out, and we actually had funds to be able to buy more SUVs and do a few things for the department, but they took it out partially this year, and so we were reduced in funds this year because they had to give funds to the other districts. So it's always we don't really know what our budget is until the spring budget workshop. So how we're going to sit. But we transported half of the students in APS, but from last year to this year, we did not take as big a hit as the district as a whole did. So we're hoping that helps us out this year, in the next year. Did that answer your question?
Does that answer your question, Board Member Storga?
It does. Thank you so much.
I have one more. Do you know how many buses transport Native children to the tribes? I know like To'Hajiilee and then Isleta. I don't know if there are any other buses that travel out to the outskirts to the.
Send a few buses out to To'Hajiilee. do have some buses out to Isleta. Most of the kids in more northern are done by Rio Rancho, so so we're more Isleta and Dodgely areas that we transport to.
And I know those particular students don't have an activity bus, so they only come to and from school, but they're not involved in any activities. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of that there's any after-school activities, but if there were, have them reach out to us because we're more than happy to provide services if needed. But I have not, in my contractor days and also APS days, have heard of anybody approaching for that service.
So would that come from a tribe, the tribal leaders and the requests anyway? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Binns. Madam President, with your permission, I'll continue to the next presentation. Our next presentation will be centering around food and nutrition services. The revenue for this department is projected at just over $49 million, primarily from state and federal funding, and expenses are driven by salaries and the purchase of food. We are fortunate to have a very innovative team in the Food and Nutrition Services Department who is helping to bring these federal and state regulations and policies into practice. For example, next school year, based on state mandate, we are excited to share that in every single cafeteria, at every single school in APS, we will be serving 51%, at least 51% scratch cooking at breakfast and lunch. And that is not an easy thing to accomplish, but it is something that our team is up to, and they are up to the task and taking feedback also in a very intentional way. For example, under the leadership of our new executive director, Marie Johnson, we have had several face-to-face parent and student forums where they've opened up feedback to what they like about the menu, what they'd like to see on the menu. And again, another example from our infrastructure tour today, we sampled at lunch one of the new items that the students will be enjoying next year for lunch. I don't remember what the technical term for the meal is. I know it is a sloppy Joe, but it was delicious, and kudos to our team. By prioritizing nutritious meals and staff development, these allocations reduce income-based disparities and ensure that every student is healthy, focused, and ready to learn. These investments transform food services into a vital wraparound service that addresses food insecurity while delivering, directly improving student attendance and wellness. In our next slide, we can see that implementation is key. Food and nutrition services serve as a vital wraparound support, ensuring that food insecurity never stands in the way of student academic achievement. By providing equitable access to high-quality meals, we protect student wellness, improve daily attendance, and ensure every student arrives in the classroom ready to engage and succeed. One of the things that I would like to point out is that we are always looking at different ways to connect with our students, from delivery of meals as a grab and go to supervision earlier in the morning for students to come in a little bit earlier to have breakfast, and also promoting after-school snacks and even dinners when applicable and available. So we're very grateful to that. And with those pieces, I would just like to point out that our final slide in this presentation is another logic model that basically takes our inputs carrying them out to our outputs into our outcome, which is the connection to our goals and guardrails. And for this portion, Madam President, I'd like to invite up our Executive Director, Marie Johnson, who can assist me in answering any questions the board may have in relationship to food and nutrition services.
Okay, any questions?
I don't really have a question. I have a comment. I'm so excited about this scratch cooking because as a teacher who worked in APS for 27 years, I would eat the Thanksgiving meal and that's about it. And so I'm pretty excited. I always hated to see kids throwing away food. And so I'm hoping like this really will make a difference. And it also, as a grandma, who my grandkids call me at least once a week, Grandma, will you bring me lunch? I'm hoping that will stop now that you guys are doing scratch cooking. So thank you.
Board Member Jackson? No?
I don't have any questions. Marie, I think you're just amazing. And I'm just so impressed with the work that you've been able to do over there and got to partake a little bit of the salad bar over at El Dorado. And I think that you've done a lot to take in what the community has been telling you and asking. And so I'm just appreciative of the work that you've done. So thank you for being with APS.
Yes, thank you, President Tomarito, and thank you for being here this evening and for the work that you do. It sounds like it probably comes from the heart because cooking, I do not like cooking. I'm just gonna put it out there. I hate it. And luckily I'm married to somebody who's very good at it. So, but the people who do it, they do it with love, and to do it on such a large scale and to open up the environment to listening to what the kids want is incredible. And it's something that when I was campaigning, some of the families I visited said, do you think that they could do that? Because food is a comfort, and especially our students who come from other countries who don't really understand the American diet, and I don't know if that's something you have explored or can even do, but it makes us feel good when we recognize what we're eating, especially when we like what we're eating. And so thank you so much. That's so important. I want to know though, what is the name of the Sloppy Joe? And I'm sorry I missed that. It sounds amazing.
Madam President, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, the Sloppy Joe today is called B&M's Southwest Joe on bun. So it's a traditional Sloppy Joe, but they kind of played around with the recipe and made it authentically New Mexican. There's red chili in it.
Wow.
And one of the great things about this sandwich is if a student decides they just want that sandwich, that's it. This is one of the meals we can do that with. It has 3 components in that one sandwich.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. I was one of the great individuals who got to be on the tour and go in the freezer and do all of those great things. But after looking at your presentation, I can see all the components and visualize it because I visited the site. And thank you so much because the food was great and the salad bar and even like the Sloppy Joe, but I didn't get the bun. So I had to say no to that. But what were the fries again?
They were yucca fries.
Yucca fries. Those are really good. Thank you so much for that. I think many times we forget, especially when we look at belonging, that food brings belonging. And many times in our own cultural, food is the central place to not only eat, but to converse, to talk. And I think that's another place where we have comprehension going with all of these pieces, that if we can create those environments to be those central places, I think that the kids would benefit so much more, because I really think nowadays we're not eating around the table. We're not doing things to have kids slow down for a moment and digest that food. But I know also we don't have enough time to eat too. But I do want to thank you for, just as everyone said, that you have taken this huge challenge and have now broken it apart to where now we're doing so many great things to make sure our children get their basic needs met. And I thank you too for the love you present and for how your staff is doing the same thing. And they were very just hospitable to everyone who visited today. So thank you so much for that.
Madam President, with your permission, I'll move on to the final presentation. And this one is our capital fiscal budget. And the capital fiscal budget is projected to be 525 million, which revenue primarily consists of mill levy funds and general obligation bonds. These expenditures related to funding are primarily construction. All budgets are a reflection of the laws, regulations, and policies as I have stated, and this slide lists some of these that are related to capital funds. I would like to take a minute, however, and define 3 of them in a little bit of detail because I think it's really important. The first one is the Public Schools Capital Improvement Act, also known as mill levy funds. And generally speaking, these funds support maintenance and operations. With board approval, our next mill levy request to the voters will be in 2027. So we currently are operating on mill levy funds, which we also know as SB 9 and HB 33 funds from our last mill levy approval from the voters. So we anticipate a new request coming to them next calendar year. The second area that I like to highlight is public school capital outlay funds. And these are legislative funds that the district is beneficiary of based on the generosity of our legislators. We have received preliminary numbers that show that based on this legislative session that just finished a few weeks ago, we are slated with governor signature, which is a big caveat, with governor signature, just over $15 million in capital outlay funds based on this the session that just concluded. And finally, the last funding stream that I like to highlight for you this evening is the local GEO bonds. And districts may issue general obligation bonds based on local property taxes for construction as per state constitutional and statutory limits. We know that the most recent GEO bond was funded and approved by the voters just a few months ago in November of 2025. And these are projected to be part of the work that we are doing along the lines of new construction, like partial or complete school rebuilds, HVAC conversion, from evaporative cooling to refrigerated air at 20 of our schools, and artificial turf installation, among other areas. As a final note, I want to point out that APS is working very closely with the New Mexico Public Schools Facilities Authority to match funds every time we can. So basically, if there's opportunities to go to the state and ask for matching funds, we do that to maximize the limited resources that we do have in this area. Capital funds are strategic support, aligning resources to the goals and guardrails. And this slide really highlights how we do that and how we work to strike equity and community voice in every one of our projects. In our next slide, we outline how some of the resource allocations, planning, monitor, and challenging associated with capital funds do exist. One of the things that I like to highlight from this slide is the intentionality that we are working with the design of every one of our projects. And I'd like to just give you an example. Today on our infrastructure tour, we visited Moody Special Education Complex. And we are slated with the generosity of the voters and approval of the board, the design of the special education complex on the west side of town. The design of that facility is very important, and voice is very important in terms of how we are going to be constructing that building. I believe it was at the last finance committee meeting and board consent agenda that the board approved us going to design for that project. Today we heard on the tour really what the practitioners would like to see in terms of that facility on the west side. I just bring that up because voice in design is very important as we strike to achieve really what our practitioners, students, and community need in any total or partial rebuilds that we take part in. In our next slide, we see our logic model that once again strives to capture how we meet the goals through these capital funds. And finally, I'd like to invite Executive Director Gazito Wajinji to join me in answering any questions you may have in relationship to capital funds in Albuquerque Public Schools.
Okay. Anyone? No? Anyone? No?
Sorry, Kazita.
I got one. I got one. I just have one. I just want to know the ADA, the compliance projects. What are those currently? Who that's your person?
Board President, members of the board, Superintendent, we have certain compliance projects where we are required to bring up to speed Americans with Disabilities Act, Title IX, Gender Equity, and these are projects where, as you know, about 40% of our schools are 50 years old, where some of these laws were not in place. And so we have an agreement both with our community, with the federal government and the state government to have a bridge in which we deal with the ADA meanwhile. And over time, once the buildings are either refurbished or rebuilt, we commit to make sure that all those issues are dealt with the current design and requirements. And so those, you would say, come above the line in terms of when we do prioritization, things like ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, gender equity, safety, and other equity issues come before anything else.
So how many projects do you have with the ADA compliance?
Almost every project that we do has an element of ADA compliance. But one of the reasons that, for example, you see in the rebuild of especially the high schools is that a lot of the times the PE, physical education wing comes first, because we have a whole list of especially Title IX. When they built Milne in 1936 and they built Wilson in the 50s, there was football and there was track. And girls were supposed to go and do home ec. Now you have an issue over the last so many years where you have to have equity by gender and equity by area. And so those issues come first.
So there's a list of them.
Yes,
okay.
We do. And if it's to your pleasure, we could parse those out and send them out to you.
Yes.
I think,
Thank you.
Board Member Tomarito and members of the board, I believe that Ms. Allred sends a monthly report of projects. And on there, she has all of her ADA. So we have a specific designated construction manager to oversee the ADA projects. And so those are all listed on the capital that she sends those projects.
Okay. Okay, and then Board Member Astorga has a question.
Thank you, President Tomorito. Thank you so much, Kazito. I really enjoy speaking with you about all these projects, and I was able to go to the presentation at Truman Middle School when they showcased the construction that they did there. It was just beautiful. I had a quick question about how the school community is involved with choosing what upgrades they get. I have had some folks from Washington Middle School say that they're very happy about upgrades that they got to the restrooms, but they would also like better HVAC. So I'm just wondering what the process is to involve the specific schools that you choose to upgrade.
Board President, Board Member Stoga, we have a system where you have an assessment that is a baseline assessment of what everybody should have equitably. And then when it comes to specific schools, for every design project at that school, you have a design committee that is made up of the principal, parents, students, and teachers from that school. Now, they can come up and say what it is that they would like based within the baseline, but life, health, and safety, ADA, and all the rules come first. And then within that budget, our FD&C works with that school committee to make sure that they get all they need to get. Now, in terms of the HVAC, this is a push that the administration has made given climate change and given how hot it's become over the ensuing years. The intention is to make sure that every school gets HVAC as soon as possible. And we've started with, we had the 20 projects this last bond election. Before that, every single new wing and every single new renovation over the last 5 years has come in with new HVAC. So it's just a matter of funding and trying to get, we as you saw, we have a $7 billion assessed need, and every 6 years, we go to the taxpayer and get about $1 billion of that, because the Board of Education has made a commitment over the last few years. They're not going to raise taxes, but we're going to live within our means.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The Board Astorga, who's speaking?
Oh, I was gonna finish up the presentation.
Yes, go ahead.
Madam President.
Like, I thought it was an angel.
Across all programs, this budget presentation serves outlines of how the budget is an instrument of policy, how it is a strategic support and a management tool. It reflects compliance with laws, alignment with board goals, stewardship of public funds, and a commitment to student outcomes. We look forward to continued discussions and appreciate feedback as we move forward towards the final approval of the budget adoption. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time and for staying as late as we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this will move us on to our last item, and it's the President's report. I just want to thank all of our public forum speakers tonight. We heard from the specific guests on these topics of teachers' concerns and their survey results. The community engagement piece from Ms. Sayer on attending basketball games. She's on my side. I would do that all day. No, and then also the outdoor learning piece that we really took in. But I just want to know that public forum is not an opportunity for dialogue. And I want each speaker to know that you were heard and that where there was need expressed, we are working with the administration on resolutions. I would just like to share something, and because it's been on my mind since I can't know when it was, but I thought I would just give a little tidbit on a teacher that really helped me in my life. it was in my sixth grade class. So growing up on the Navajo Nation, my teacher in sixth grade, her name was Louisa Quinn, and she came from New York City, but decided to teach in Crown Point, New Mexico. Every Friday at 2 p.m., she would take the time, pull out this little book, and in there was a poem called The Highwayman. And this poem was written in 1906. And it was a dramatic little poem, but the story was about a highwayman and his true love named Bess, and red-coated soldiers and sacrifice, but she wouldn't just read it. She performed it. And her voice, her hands, her energy, and that's why I think I move my hands around all the time, because I do like to perform. Her energy brought every word to life. But through her teaching, she showed us that stories could move us, that learning could also stir the heart as well as the mind. She loved being a teacher, and her passion was her power. She would always say to us as sixth graders, be ready for life and be ready for seventh grade. That is the significance of her teaching. She prepared us not just academically, but for life. She taught curiosity, courage, and imagination. And because of her, I went on to read Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, Pablo Neruda, Maya Angelou, and many other poets. I even wrote poems myself, and her influence reached far beyond the classroom. And it shaped the way I see the world and the way I lead. Today, not only as a board president of the school board, I know this: teachers shape trajectories. Policy and budgets matter, but at the center is a teacher and a child in the classroom. We now live in a world with AI curriculum, and I don't need to bring this all back up again, but technology opens doors, but it cannot replace the connection between teacher and student. Communication, relationships, and mentorships remain the foundation of learning, and the tools may change, but the heart of teaching, passion, care, and the ability to inspire remains the same. Our responsibility is to create conditions where passionate teaching can thrive, where educators are supported, respected, and trusted to ignite imagination, build relationships, and prepare students not just for the next grade, but for life. So somewhere in our district today, a teacher is reading with passion, mentoring a student, or using technology to expand learning. And somewhere a child is discovering a future they cannot yet see. That is the irreplaceable value of teachers, the power they have to open doors, spark curiosity, and shape a lifetime of learning. And I just want to thank my sixth grade teacher for doing that for me. Thank you. And that, the meeting's adjourned.